And how you living, how you doing, how you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast. Now, of course, we're back here in the Idiots Podcast studio, brought to you by the Idiots Podcast Network. Greatly appreciate them having me aboard. Of course, it's just me, as per usual, your favorite idiot number 0. My name's Zach. Hope you guys are doing better than all right, I guess. But yeah, so this is going to be a fun episode. What we're going to start doing is we're going to start breaking down all these teams. We're going to go division by division. So what we're going to see is there's going to be one large lump sum video. It's going to have every single team from all 6 divisions. We're going to make one lump sum video, and then we're going to also have kind of divisions broken down a little bit. You'll see the AL East, AL West, you'll see all the different divisions kind of have their own video. So that'll also be nice if you want to look for a more targeted approach rather than just a all-encompassing episode. So with that being said, we're going to get right into this first episode, guys. And really what we're doing here is we're just kind of looking at these teams. I'm going to tell you, how I feel about them. If I like them, if I like the direction they went in this offseason, if I think they're kind of in a good place to start winning games and really turning over that next page and becoming a playoff caliber team to a potential World Series caliber team. So with that being said, the first league we're going to take on, or the first division we're going to take on, that's going to be the AL East. Now this division's an awfully exciting division, filled with several good teams from the Orioles, the Red Sox, the Rays, the Blue Jays, and even the Yankees. So there's going to be a lot of fun things to talk about, and we'll just get right into it, baby. So to start off the list, we're gonna start off with the Orioles, just keeping it fun. And really the one big thing I was able to take away from this team is that this team just has a ton of youth. I mean, if you look at their their starting lineup right now, they only have one guy in there that's over the age of 30 right now. Cedric Mullins is he's right there at 29 and a half, but really Ryan O'Hearn being the only guy over 30, and really he's just barely over 30. I think that just shows the youth movement that the Orioles have committed to over the last few seasons. And really, we saw last season how successful that youth movement was for them. And I think this is something they just want to keep moving forward with. I mean, they have a lot of young guys who have been very talented, have consistently been improving. I mean, we see that with, Santander, with Mountcastle. They got a ton of young guys coming up through the system. They're trying to see if they work, like Westberg and Jackson Holiday. Let's not forget about Ruxman from last year, and even Gunnar Henderson. So I like the lineup. I think the lineup is fun. It's a little different. It feels small ball-y, but they really do have a weird ability to just hit the damn ball. Something that's ultimately extremely important. And a lot of teams, I would say that they need a reliable bat. Now I would say that you probably don't really have that super duper reliable bat in this Orioles lineup, but I would argue that really I think there's a couple guys that are going to become reliable bats, and that's Gunnar Henderson, Ruxman. I mean, we've seen Mullins be a little worse over the past couple years, but I have a feeling that maybe this might be a little bit of a bounce back year for a guy like Cedric Mullins. Oh, let me get the 2023 stat sheet up. There we go. Today, please. There we go. All right, so yeah, I mean, we've seen Cedric Mullins play decently. Obviously, he's been getting slightly worse year in and year out. At least he's still there for the steals, playing good defense in the center field position. But I would like to see him climb his average up a little bit. Maybe we see some more steals from this team. This is a team that had a lot of steals from Jorge Mateo last year, who's now going to be bumped into the, I want to call it the clubhouse, into the dugout. So, I just think it's going to be interesting. This team did lose a lot of speed with moving Mateo to the bench, but I think that this team is just a fun team. It really is. The Orioles got a lot of fun team, just fun team possibilities to them. So I'm excited for their lineup. Now we're going to get into the pitching side of things, and really, the one thing I was able to notice is that the starters are all pretty young. I mean, the oldest guy you got on there is Cole Irvin, and he's barely older than Tyler Wells and Corbin Burns. So, I don't mind their starting rotation now. I think not having Means or Bradish currently there, as Means is coming off of some elbow soreness and Bradish has a sprained elbow. So hopefully they'll be back by the time the season starts. But I'm really not ultra confident in having a guy like Cole Irvin in there. Grayson Rodriguez is definitely still very young, still needs a little bit more time to see what he is. And I would argue same thing with Dean Kramer. I mean, or Kramer. I think that he's in a very similar position to Grayson Rodriguez, and we really got to see what they have now. Adding Corbin Burns, really getting that top ace into that rotation, I think is a huge deal. So I'm glad they went out and did that. But yeah, I think those two injuries they're definitely going to be felt early in the season. But as the season progresses, if those guys are able to come back and do what they do best, I think even if we get 90% of what we were once getting out of Means and Bradish, I think that's still better than what they currently have. Now, we're going to talk about the bullpen a little bit. They didn't really do all too much of the bullpen. I mean, obviously they lost Felix Bautista to Tommy John, but they're going to replace him with Craig Kimbrell. Now, I wouldn't say that's the greatest thing in the world, but Craig Kimbrell, Hall of Fame closer, a guy who's been around, possible Hall of Fame closer. Hard to get in from as a closer. Billy Wagner's clearly shown us that, but Craig Kimbrell's he's a rather good player, guy who's been in the league for a long time. As someone who wants to root for the Orioles, I think that picking up a guy like Kimbrell really helps solidify this pen, especially with that Bautista injury. And I'm just excited to see where this team goes. Now, currently their over-under is at 90.5. Now, with that, I actually think they're going to hit the over. I think this team gets better as the season goes on. And I could see them making some potential deadline moves. Now, really what they lost in this offseason was a lot of guys who really could be considered rentals. I mean, they did lose Aaron Hicks, who was a rental. They lost Flaherty, who was a rental. I mean, Kyle Gibson they had, but I wouldn't argue that he was necessarily great. Fujinami was okay. Michael Givens, you can lose and not really feel that. And I even feel the same thing about Jorge Lopez for this team. I like the way they're going. I like the direction they're going in. I think this team has a lot of fun juice with them. So I hope they can do maybe one more piece in terms of that starting rotation or bullpen. They didn't need to add a ton, but the names they added were definitely felt throughout the lineup. Now, the next team we're going to go to is the Boston Red Sox. As soon as it loads. Please load. Oh, God. All right. There we go. It's getting there, slowly but surely. Come on, Fangraphs. All right, well, in the meantime, what we'll do is I'll just quickly tell you, I just want to hear from you guys. Do you guys think I should break this down into a team-by-team video or, and have 30 videos? Or do you guys think this is better in the current format it is, going division by division? Just let me know. Drop something down in the comments. Throw a like, subscribe. Hell, literally hitting any of those buttons is awesome, so I greatly appreciate it. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the Boston Red Sox. We finally got there. Now, this is another team that I would definitely argue is just interesting. They went out and did some fun things in free agency, like picking up Tyler O'Neill, going out there, getting a guy like Vaughn Grisham in a trade, and they even went out there, picked up Giolito, definitely needed some starting pitching. I'll definitely, this is what I'll say. They were also able to pick up Liam Hendricks, who's coming off of Tommy John. Guy should be good to come back and go. He's also coming back off of cancer. So, best of luck to Liam Hendricks, a guy I really like, a guy I hope can return to success. Now, the reason why I say this team is interesting is just because, I feel like there's a lot of question marks on a team that's this young. And it's weird to say that the Red Sox are this young, but really, Trevor Story is probably the oldest guy there at 31, and then you have Yoshida, who was recently signed as of last year, at age 30. Now, this team does have some fun pop to it. We saw Tristan Casas really have a good year last year, 24 home runs on a 263 average. So we saw that was pretty nice. You always have Devers. Devers is a solid guy. Always excited to see him. I think adding Vaughn Grisham is definitely going to help in the back end. I think that's a solid second baseman for the time. I didn't realize Connor Wong was a catcher. I for some reason thought he was a second baseman. Delback's on the bench, which is awesome. And really, it's just this lineup it looks odd. I mean, Wilmer Abreu, Connor Wong, Tyler O'Neill, who isn't necessarily known for his ability to hit the ball. And then you also have guys in there like I mean, we'll just keep it with those guys. Those guys just feel a little unsettling. You don't know exactly what you're going to get out of them in terms of, a full season's worth of play. So I'm intrigued to see how that falls out. Now, defensively, this team is not super stout. I mean, I do like Trevor Story defensively. I think putting him, slotting him back in coming off of injury is going to be huge. Devers has never been a great fielder, but you stick him at third base because he can get the job done, and he's an awesome bat. This lineup just feels weird. I mean, I like Jarren Duran. I think he's going to add a lot to the top of that lineup. And really, I would like to see another good year out of Tristan Casas, just because I know how bad the Bobby Delback experiment was. So I would love to see a little bit more consistency there. But with that being said, I will say I hate their starting pitching. It feels like every single guy they have there outside of like Bello and Crawford are just kind of, you know what, I'll even throw Houck in there. But still, like, I don't like Pivetta. He feels like an innings eater, and Giolito is somehow becoming an innings eater. Now, I don't think that was a bad signing for them. They definitely needed another starting pitcher, but I don't know if that was the right signing for them. But, Brian Bello and Cutter Crawford really going to have to see what they have this year. I personally like Brian Bello. I remember watching him last year. Had a lot of fun watching him. But those are, and really I'll throw Tanner Houck in there. Those are three guys they need to see developmental strides out of. Otherwise, they need to make an organizational decision of whether or not they want to move on and really see if they have any of the starting pitchers that have any juice or try to make a move for one. Now, with that being said, their bullpen is pretty solid. I don't think it's a mess. It looks fine. I like Kenley Jansen. Chris Martin had a great season last year. Josh Winikowski had a good year. Garrett Whitlock isn't terrible, but he had a horrible year last year. I think adding in Liam Hendricks is definitely going to make this a all-around better bullpen. But when your starters are just this bad, I have a hard time believing that this team is really going to be able to win consistently, as they're going to have to battle kind of day in and day out, really just to make sure that they can, they're going to have to battle for runs. That's really what every game is going to be. I feel like it's going to be tough. Now, this is a team that I really believe could use another DH, like a true DH. I think if they added a guy like JD Martinez, this team instantly becomes a hell of a lot more fun. And really, I think I think they would smash their, 79.5 over under if they were to add a guy like JD. But with that being said, I will say I don't think they lost free agency. I still think they actually came out on top. Really only lost. I like Duvall, but they lost an aging Adam Duvall and aging Justin Turner. And really, I would say almost a useless James Paxton. So I'm not bothered by what they've done this offseason. I think they've done a good job this offseason for the most part. But with that being said, at this 79.5 games, I'm actually going to take the over. Now, the reason why I'm going to take the over is because this team does feel like a bat away from being a solid wild card team. And maybe that's just my oversight of the pitching, but I think when you commit to this type of pitching, you really got to lean more into the lineup, and I don't think they've leaned into the lineup enough to be a viable team. But I do think they can. I think they might hit like 80 wins. Like, I could see them being like an 80, 82 team, That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, I guess we're going to kind of see the direction the Red Sox are going to go in now. But like I said, I'm excited for the youth in their lineup in terms of Duran, Casas, and Grisham. So we're going to move on to the Toronto Blue Jays. And they're 84.5 wins currently for their over-under. Now, I'll talk about that because I don't know how to... actually, wrong team, but we're going to do this team anyway. They're at 86.5 wins. My bad. So this is what I'm going to say. This team feels just short. It feels like they're missing one more piece to this lineup to really just give them that extra popability, that extra, fortification of the back end of the lineup. And I think a guy like IKF, I know you signed him this year, but I don't know if he really gives you the same value that Matt Chapman, a guy who had a low average but was really able to play phenomenal defense. Ooh, excuse me. But yeah, I think losing a guy like Chapman, and I know he's still a free agent at this point, but I would like to see Matt Chapman back on this team. I think he helps a hell of a lot. Now, what I will say is, I would argue that this team either lost a little bit or they're going to just win a little bit. Now, this is all dependent upon the signing of a guy like Matt Chapman. And the reason why I say a guy like Matt Chapman is just because, they can add other guys who I think can do just the same, can bring the same type of value. Now, obviously, we're not going to see Justin Turner go and play third base, but I don't mind if they want to go pick up another DH. So it's just like, for me, my thing is like George Springer isn't a bad player by any means, but I feel like he's going to start to slow down. I mean, he had a good season last year, 24 homers, 14 bags, batted .256, not a bad season at all. But I just feel like this lineup has so much to give. I feel like there's more to give than what we're getting. So, they go out there, they add Vogie. It's not a bad sign. They pick up Justin Turner. I don't mind that at all. But they really do feel just one more bat away, and I think a guy like J.D. Martinez or a guy like Matt Chapman really can help fix this lineup. Now, in terms of the bullpen looks fine. Jordan Romano, fine. I don't think this bullpen's bad by any means. I mean, Tim Mazza is a decent arm. Yami Garcia, Eric Swanson, Chad Green didn't have. I mean, he actually had a decent year. So they have some good guys back there. Trevor Richards, Genesis Cabrera. I mean, I don't mind their bullpen whatsoever. I just really do think this team is one player short, and that's the thing that sucks for me. Just because I think Chapman fits this team so well. That's really what they need, is just another third baseman. To be truly honest with you, I don't know what else would be good for them. Now, MLB free. Now I'm going to look up some MLB free agents just to double check real quick, see who's left on the board, but I don't think we're going to need anything else outside of Chapman in terms of, the Blue Jays' performance in their lineup. I don't think they need anything else. I mean, I could see if they want to go after a DH. Oh, come on. One day, guys. One day I will be much faster than this. One day. We'll get there eventually. Come on, don't give me all statuses. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to keep talking like nothing ever happened. Now, the one thing I will say is that from 2023 to 2024, I don't think this team has really changed enough to change my mind. So that's the one thing I just wanted to say with that. Now, 86.5 wins. I'm definitely going to put them at the under. Now, I just feel pretty solid with this. I don't know. I like the under here. I think the Blue Jays are more talk than they are walk. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the Tampa Bay Rays. So let's just get everything to load real quick in due time, folks. I appreciate you waiting with me for the half second. Take this time to go, hey, I have other podcasts on here. I'm also on Spotify. Please feel free to drop a like, comment, subscribe. Either platform works. Both platforms is even better. Don't be afraid to reach out on the Instagram if you have a suggestion. Look, I'm a small podcast that's just looking to enjoy myself. So if I can give the people a better experience, I would greatly appreciate that. Oh my God. Come on, Tampa. Well, while we're kind of just sitting here, what I will say is I'd actually like the AL East. I think they're a very fun division. This team's got a lot of pop all around. Anything could happen. This is just a fun division. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the Tampa Bay Rays now. And honestly, the one takeaway I had from this team is that they're just weird. The Rays have always been a very weird team, but they just proceed to get weirder. Now, I like the signing in Ahmed Rosario. I think that was a pretty solid signing. I think we'll end up seeing him potentially get some work at that shortstop spot, maybe a little bit at second base. I could even see him in the outfield. They tend to move guys around a lot, so I do believe Ahmed Rosario is going to get a decent, chunk of playing time in here. I think he'll be pretty decent. I would also hope to see some more play time out of Harold Ramirez, but this is the Tampa Bay Rays. They just do what they're going to do. The Rays are going to Ray. Now, I'm excited to see another season of Isaac Paredes. He had a pretty good year last year, but I'm excited to see him back in action. Same thing with Randy Arozarena. Now, the one thing I did kind of want to talk about is just the fact that they lost Wander Franco, and this lineup is gonna feel it. Like, it's he shouldn't be on this team, obviously, as his circumstances kind of point to. But what I will say is that, losing that type of caliber player definitely has affected this lineup, and they didn't really replace him in any capacity. I mean, a lot of the guys are moving up through their system, or they've made, small trades in the past, but really the only thing they did is pick up Rosario on that side of the ball. So I still feel a little uncomfortable in terms of their lineup, but I know how the Rays work, so I'm confident enough that it feels weird, but they can get it done. Maybe one more ad, like a good DH, could be kind of fun, but then again, we still need to see what's going to happen. Can I just get my 2023 stats? All right, I guess no 2023 stats here. So what that's going to do is we're going to keep talking about this team. We're going to go into the pitching. Now, their pitching is just one of those. There's one of those teams that get the job done. You know what? Hold on. I'm going to pause it for half a second until I get the stats up. Give me 1 sec, folks. I'll be right back. All right, and we're back now with the Rays. So now I have their 2023 stats up. This makes my life just 1,000 times easier. But yeah, this team looks solid. Solid. This team looks flexible, but all right. I mean, more bend don't break type system. I mean, they added a guy, Ryan Pignot. Looks like he was a reliever last year. They're gonna have him start potentially, so that'll be interesting. Did add a little bit to the bullpen in Phil Maton and Tyler Alexander. Otherwise, in terms of everything else, I mean, they're just missing starting pitching. At some point, they're going to get Shane McClanahan back. I don't know if that's going to be this year or next year. It'd be nice to see them get a Jeffrey Springs return as well as a Drew Rassman return. Both those guys really do add a lot to this starting rotation. I think not having them, is definitely a huge detriment to this team. So once those guys are able to step up and step back in, I think that's going to be really a huge change for the Rays. But because of that, and because of just this lineup at 84.5 games, I have no clue of what to think about this team. I literally couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. Oh, perfecto. Great. Just closed all of my stuff. That is so awesome. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about the Yankees in about a half a second. The Jabankies. So, Yankees, fun team. They added a lot this season. I know they did pick up Soto. A lot of moving pieces to the Yanks. But the one thing that really just I noticed is that this lineup is dumb good. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen a lineup with this type of pop. So, Jesus Christ. This computer sucks. All right. So, yeah. Oh, there we go. Of course, when I get it up, you get it up. That's what she said. Is it? I don't know. Okay. So, like I said, this lineup is unbelievably good. I mean, DJ LeMahieu is a guy who's been there for a long time. He's had a lot of success. Let's see. You have Soto, who's solid. Judge, who's great. Let's see, who else do you have? Rizzo, who will hit the ball. Torres, who's all right. Verdugo, who will get some hits. I mean, this whole lineup just hits the damn ball. Now, it's going to be huge to see how much of an improvement Austin Wells is going to be potentially over Jose Trevino, who's now been moved to the bench. They pick up a guy like Verdugo. I'm excited. I like this team. They even go out there, pick up Trent Grisham just for some defensive outfield play, which I don't mind. I think that was a good pickup on their part. Now, with all that said, they also, I'm rushing through this because I can't get the 2023 stats. It's, they want me to click on Google Gemini. I can do that. I can click on Google Gemini in any ad, but I can't click on the fucking website and what's supposed to work on the website. That's a no-no, guys. It's ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. Now I got the stats up. Jesus. But I like this team. This team, they're going to hit the ball at an unbelievable rate. I mean, hopefully it's not as home run or bust as it's been in past seasons. I think guys like Verdugo kind of help that. And I would even argue that potentially Austin Wells could potentially help that. I mean, obviously a guy like Soto just hits the damn ball, so it doesn't even matter. So I'm really excited to watch that lineup. Now, What I will say is, injuries are going to be key for this team. We've seen them, sustain a lot of injuries over the last couple of years and just really derail this team and really, their World Series aspirations. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that goes from there. But what I will say is the starting rotation looks fine. I mean, it looks fine. I'm not bothered by it at all. I think it's pretty decent. But what I would say is that, I know you just went out there, signed Rodon on a big money deal last year, had a terrible season, but I'm a little nervous about him and sexy Nestor. But I'm intrigued to see how that breaks down, how that works out. Clark Schmidt, same thing. I know he's just kind of there to be an innings eater, but these other four guys, I know they're supposed to be something else. So maybe we see them just go out there, get a little bit more depth. In terms of their bullpen, I actually don't mind their bullpen. I know they did lose Wandy Peralta this offseason, who was a guy who did a lot of, had a lot of solid relief innings for the Yankees. But what I will say is they're looking to hopefully get back Lou Trevino. He's had a lot of relief success for this team in the past. Clay Holmes had a good season last year. Maybe we get a little bit more out of Loizaga. Tommy Canley's not bad. I like this bullpen. I don't think it's that bad. Maybe we see later in the year they fortify it a little bit, but as of right now, I don't mind this bullpen at all. So yeah, I mean, with that being said, they're at 93 and a half games. And yeah, I mean, for some odd reason, this is just a team that feels like they are not going to hit that 93 and a half win mark. They should, by every metric, they should 100% hit 100 wins, but I just have this weird feeling they're going to end up being below 93 and a half wins. I mean, this team is World Series or bust. Don't forget it. They really are World Series or bust. But yeah, that's the AL East. It's a fun team, fun division. Got a lot of interesting takes there. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for coming out here, joining the pod, taking a listen, taking your time out of your day to listen to me kind of just bullshit talk and have some fun. So hopefully I was able to give you guys a little bit of sports knowledge. Now, with that being said, be on the lookout for more episodes coming soon. We're going to get all these divisions up and out of here as soon as possible before the MLB season starts. So I'm pretty excited with that. Now, folks, I appreciate you coming out, listening. And with that being said, have a great day. And how you doing? How you living? How you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast. Now, of course, we're back in the Idiots Podcast studio, brought to you by the Idiots Podcast Network. Back in the studio, excited to get another division underway, get some more baseball talk, just kind of figuring out what these teams are going to look like before the start of the season on March 28th. I'm pretty excited about the season, lots of good things to come, lots of good baseball on the way. So with that being said, this episode is all about the NL East. So, last episode we did AL East. This episode we're doing the NL East. We're going to finish the East this episode, move on to either the West or the Central divisions after this. And yeah, we're just going to, kind of keep on rolling. So with that being said, we're going to start off with my favorite team, and that's going to be the New York Mets. Now, we've kind of talked a little bit already. I do have the Mets-specific podcast, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate one more time, my thoughts and feelings about the Mets and really kind of what's everything looking like. So with that being said, I got to kind of readjust myself here. Oh, we'll bring this over here. There we go. Perfecto. Oi, I'm all over the place. So with that being said, I would say the best... God, late. I'm all over. All right. We're doing the Mets. We're going to get there. We're going to do it right now. It's going to be short. Already talked about them. So, I think the Mets are they're pretty Metsy. They just feel pretty Metsy as per usual. Nothing different. It's just there's just so many Metsy types of players all over this lineup. So many players that just have one major issue, like Nimmo, major health issue. Last year he finally played a full season, but throughout, the entire time the Mets tried to get him to actually play in his mid-20s, he was never healthy. McNeil, McNeil had a horrible season last year. I mean, he's a batting average guy. If you can't hit for average, he's pretty much useless outside of being a util guy. Uh, Lindor is starting to improve. We saw him with a nice little 31-31 season last year. Pete Alonso could stand to bring up his average again. Marte's a walking injury bug. I hope he actually can play a little bit. I hate DJ Stewart. Harrison Bader has, really had a hard time hitting the ball. But I just hate to say that this team feels so freaking Metsy, man. It does, and I hate to say that, but it's the truth of the matter. Now, something I wanted to talk about is just we already have some early pitching issues. We saw that Kodai Senga actually just got bumped, has a strained shoulder, so it looks like he might be missing some time. Hopefully that doesn't really take too much time out of the regular season, just because Kodai really is our number one guy, and this is a team full of pretty much inning eaters with potential. Let's see what happens. I mean, look, the Mets could be a 100-win team. They could also be a 60-win team. There's so much variance on all these guys that it is a little uncomfortable. You don't know exactly what you're getting. Now, in terms of starting pitching, I mean, we have Quintana, who, when we picked him up, I really just thought he was an innings eater type of guy, and still think he's that. I mean, he had a decent season through 75 innings pitched last season, but it's a huge issue when you're only able to play 13 games. Sevy was coming back off of some injury issues, had a terrible season last year. Sean Manaea hasn't been the same player. Adrian Hauser, we'll see how he does. And then we still have Tyler McGill and Peterson, along with, I believe, Lucchesi is still there in some capacity. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, Lucchesi and Jose Bunto. Fuck, man, I hate this starting rotation. This is probably the worst starting rotation I've seen in my entire lifetime as a Met fan, and it's tough to look at. It's so many question marks with so many guys that really could be 5+ ERA players. And it's embarrassing. It really is fucking embarrassing. Yeah, the lineup really could stand to pull up the overall average. It's a big point is just hitting the fucking ball, getting the ball in play, and actually, getting on base. So for a team that's pretty small ball built, we really need to be able to hit the damn ball. So I hope that our team average doesn't look as bad as it was last year. Maybe that would also be helped out by the fact if we could up our RISP, also known as runners in scoring position. If we get up that average, that'd be greatly appreciated. That's been a problem the Mets have had since I was pretty much a baseball fan. I haven't seen this team really been able to knock in runs from second and third, and that's just a pure embarrassment of this franchise. Now, I will say the bullpen looks a lot better than it did last year, but based on this starting rotation and how weak it really is, I have some issues. So that's going to be interesting for sure. Now, I would say just go check out the Mets pod, City Night Lights. There's definitely a deeper dive on all of this, but yeah, that's kind of my feelings right now towards the Mets as a team. And, they're an 82.5 win total. That's their over-under. And I could see an under so easily. Like, this is an 81 team at best. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just going to go down. I'm going to say they're not going to hit it. The next team we're going to move on to is a significantly better team. Team that was a kind of a shock that they weren't able to put it all together. And that's going to be, as soon as my computer loads, the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Atlanta Braves were obviously one of the best teams in the league last year. And really, I mean, they had MVP Acuna. They had so many players who played so well. And really, they've done a great job at building this team. Now, one guy I could see really taking some, having some regression built in is going to be Marcell Ozuna, a guy who's been a little all over the board. Since, he did hit his wife. Guy is kind of a piece of shit for that, but, just gonna let that one be. But yeah, I don't think Ozuna has the same type of season he just previously did with that 40 home runs, batting .274. They have a lot of young guns, a lot of guys who can seemingly get stolen bases, lots of movement. I mean, yeah, they did lose Vaughn Grisham, but I really don't think they're going to feel that all too much with Orlando Arcia coming in. They did pick up David Fletcher, Luis Guillorme to secure that. Their lineup just looks unfreaking believable. This whole team looks unbelievable. The word I had to describe this team was wow. and they really are a wow team. I mean, you look at their starting rotation, and really, excuse me, the fact that probably the most risky player in your whole rotation and bullpen is going to be Chris Sale. I mean, Chris Sale obviously has so much potential to be just a phenomenal player. So I think adding him to that rotation it can help. I think him coming playoff time, if you're able to get 5 innings out of him in a playoff game, I think that goes pretty far and really makes that Chris Sale acquisition worthwhile. Now, the bullpen did receive some upgrades. They picked up Ronaldo Lopez, and they also picked up Aaron Bummer. Now, what I will say is Aaron Bummer had a bad season last year. I could see him bounce back and be pretty decent. And, Ronaldo Lopez had a great season last year. This bullpen looks pretty solid. Now, hopefully, they're going to be able to get back Penn Murphy. I don't know if he's good or not. They just picked him up. I really couldn't tell you. Same thing with Angel Perdomo. Now, he's going to be on the IL with some Tommy John. We'll see how that all shakes out. It's going to be very interesting. But this team is just, they're the best team in this division. I mean, I even like the Jared Kelnick pickup. You could see if you could develop him in the outfield, and he's really a pretty move-offable piece. I mean, if he's not working out for them, it's not like they're going to have to keep him out there. They're just going to bump him to the bench. This is a team that really could make those deadline moves and put themselves in a great position. I really think they won free agency in terms of what they were able to do. I mean, they didn't need to go out there and do a lot, but they did enough to make sure they could supplement this lineup and this rotation/bullpen, for the next season. Now, I like this team. I think it's fun. I wish Luis Guillorme didn't have to go there. It's a little disappointing. Now, what I will say is that there is one more pitcher they may potentially receive back during this season. That's going to be Ian Anderson, coming off of Tommy John. Now, I don't know how likely it is he's going to be coming back this season, but we've seen Ian Anderson have a lot of success in the league, so it wouldn't shock me if they're able to, maybe they slow play him back, but it wouldn't shock me to see them kind of bump him into the rotation, move, maybe, depending on with Morton's health as he ages into his age 40 season, you see him take more of a bullpen type role. It'd be very interesting. But the Braves are set at currently 101 wins, 101 and a half wins, and that's just such a huge total. I'm going to be honest with you, though, guys. I'm actually going to hit the over. This feels like one of the only teams that's, still really built up enough, especially at the beginning of the season. They feel so good. They really didn't, they didn't get worse at any position group necessarily. So I think that's something that really goes to say that they only improved on a team that was already a World Series contender. I think that's really says a lot. So Braves look pretty solid. Now, what we're going to do is, hopefully I can spend enough time just filling your ears with randomness so I can wait for my computer load to talk about the next team, and that's going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, Phillies had a good season last year. They were a World Series contender, I believe. They lost to the Texas Rangers. Make sure I have all that. I believe I have that information right. Like I say, drop it in the comments if I'm wrong. Tell me. Hell, just interact. I appreciate it. But with that being said, we didn't really see any major upgrades or any gigantic losses to the, the starting lineup. Obviously, we did see Rhys Hoskins. He was currently hurt. I believe he had a torn ACL. Now, he's a Milwaukee Brewer. Now, I'd argue that really the Phillies haven't gone out and really picked up anybody on the offensive side of the ball outside of Whit Merrifield, a signing which was a one-year deal, a signing I like a lot. I could see him easily replacing a Bryson Stott or a Brandon Marsh type player. I also don't know what they're going to expect to get out of Johan Rojas, so I'm intrigued to see how that goes. But I really do think picking up Whit Merrifield was a great signing for this Phillies team to add a little bit of depth. And I know he's going to get some burn because this guy's coming off of a season with 11 home runs. He batted .272, had 26 stolen bases, something that the Phillies had a lot of last year. They were able to really move well on the bags, so it wouldn't shock me if they're able to get this guy in there as much as possible. Really just help, be another bag stealer. But like I said, this team didn't do a ton to upgrade any specific position group on offense, but I do like their team as is. I will say, though, that let me just double check because I know they had a lot of defensive issues last year. Now, I don't know what Johan Rojas brings defensively. I believe Brandon Marsh is all right defensively. I know they moved Harper to first base, and they're going to have Castellanos in their outfield. Now, Obviously not the greatest defensive outfield in the world, but definitely, at least it seems improved as per last year. Now, we're going to move on to their starting rotation. Their rotation isn't horrible. They still have Wheeler. They just re-signed Nola. Those are solid guys. You're not going to move them anywhere. Ranger Suarez has had some success with them. I don't see them moving off of him. And Taijuan Walker, more of an innings eater type of guy. He normally has one half of really good baseball and then kind of falls off. So I'm intrigued to see, we're probably going to get the same Taijuan Walker at this point, so we'll see how that goes. And then Christopher Sanchez, 27-year-old left-handed pitcher. So this is a guy they acquired in 2019 from the Tampa Bay Rays. Through 99 innings last year, had a 3.44 ERA, looked pretty good through 18 games. So what I will say is that maybe Christopher Sanchez is their next true starter. So I'd like to see them bringing him up and seeing what he's got. They might make a move later in this season to acquire a starting pitcher. I could see that. But outside of that, their lineup doesn't look all too bad. Now, losing Kimbrel, they don't really have a guy who's been there to get a gajillion saves. Jose Alvarado isn't necessarily bad by any means. He had a pretty good season last year with a 1.74 ERA through 41 innings, 10 saves. But outside of him, nobody's had more than 3 saves in this bullpen in the last year. So I'm definitely intrigued to see how that closer position kind of gets addressed. But outside of that, I think Spencer Turnbull, I don't think he's great, but I think as a long-term relief pitcher, I don't think he's bad. I like Matt Strahm as a lefty in your pen. Same thing with Gregory Soto. Obviously Jose Alvarado, another lefty, has a ton of lefties in the pen. That's awesome. Sir Anthony Dominguez, I don't think he's that great, but he had a good season last year. Really, it just appears to me that they really do need another right-handed reliever, another guy they can truly rely on, but this team is pretty freaking solid. Now, the one note I did make is that to describe this team, I call them the bomb squad, man. This team just fucking hits homers. You look at this team and you go, wow, this is what the Mets have been trying to do. Been trying to get a bunch of guys that could hit at least 200 and, bat 250 average at least. Like, just try. And could also hit some home runs. Now, I know Schwarber's, kind of the one piece that's not the same, but he hit 47 home runs, batting pretty much just 200. I don't think you can mind that. So, yeah, man, the Phillies, they don't look that bad. They're at 90.5 wins. And this is a team I'm going to say is going to hit the over. I really do think that that addition of Whit Merrifield was a huge thing. I would definitely say that in free agency, they probably lost a little bit more than they gained, but I wouldn't say they necessarily went crazy on either side of the ball in terms of losses or gains, so I'm going to be intrigued to see how that plays out. But that's the Phillies, man. That's just the way that goes. Now we're going to move on to the next team. There's only 2 teams left, both pretty bad. Obviously, one has a lot more fun players, fun youth on it than the other, and of course the team I'm referring to is the Miami Marlins. So the Miami Marlins, they're not the greatest team in the world. This is a team that they randomly pop off and all of a sudden they make the playoffs on some stupid fucking whim, and you're like, wow, how did they make the playoffs over the Mets? And I'll tell you every time, I have no idea. But I will say this team probably broke even and potentially lost in free agency, losing Jorge Soler. They lost Jacob Stallings, a quality backup catcher. They're going to lose Gene Segura. Probably he hasn't signed anywhere yet, but he also had a bad season. David Robertson is gone. Some other util players are gone. But what I will say is I like the signing of Tim Anderson. That was a recent signing, came within the previous couple days. A guy like Tim Anderson, he has the ability to add a lot of pop to your lineup. I know he didn't have a great season last year, but I really do like bringing Tim Anderson aboard this team, a team that just needs something. So I think adding him into your middle infield, obviously your middle infield defensively isn't super great between him and Luis Ariz, but I do like the direction they're going. They're at least trying to show for something. Now, they didn't really pick up anybody in the lineup department outside of Tim Anderson. Like I said, I really don't mind that signing at all. I think it was pretty decent. Avisail Garcia has extremely underperformed for this team after signing over from Milwaukee. So they just have some issues. They got a lot of young guys trying to see who's going to do what. Maybe Jake Berger surprises us again with another 34 home run season. we could see some improvements out of Jazz Chisholm, almost with that 2020 season last year. I would love to see, maybe a little bit more out of Brian De La Cruz / Jesus Sanchez. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I missed anybody necessarily. Yeah, I mean, Josh Bell's okay. They just got guys. I got to see if they have anything in them, but I don't know if some of these guys got the juice. Now, they did pick up a lot of, bench pieces. They picked up Vidal Brujan, John Birdie. Oh, they've already had him, so they just, excuse me, just kept him. Nick Gordon, I don't know who that is. Bethencourt, I know you played for, I think, the UK national team in the, in the baseball World Classic. All right. This is what we're going to do. I'm just going to start talking about the pitchers now because I'm just kind of blah, blah, blah. So, we're going to get into the starting pitchers. I actually really do like their starting rotation, led off by Jesus Luzardo. You have Uruguay Perez. Some of these names are freaking hard, man. I do like Trevor Rogers. Hopefully we can get a full season out of him. I like Edward Cabrera. I don't know much about Braxton Garrett, but a lot of young guns, loading up this starting rotation. No guy is older than the age of 26. So with that being said, I mean, there's really a lot of potential in this lineup, in this starting rotation. I would just want to see what they have. I'm very intrigued with that. I really just want to see what they got and what all these pitchers are going to look like. So I'm excited. I like their starting rotation. I actually like it a lot more than the Mets because at least, there's fucking potential. So, sadly, Sandy Alcantara is going to be out this season, but it does really let them try out some of these pitchers, potentially move on from one if they decide it's a better decision for them. But, we see Sixto has been kind of bumped down to the long relief pitcher. Now, this is a guy I would love for the Mets to go out and acquire, Sixto Sanchez, someone who I believe is young and really just has a lot of potential at the starting pitching position. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how Sixto does out of the pen. But this bullpen is it's a finely crafted bullpen. I mean, they didn't really go out there and pick up anyone. They just kind of remain the same, but I really do like their bullpen. They had a great season last year, and I could see them putting together another great season this year. I don't think they needed to do too much to their bullpen, but I don't think they did too much anywhere else, which kind of is the downfall of this team. Now, I will say the Marlins they're at 28.5 over-under win total. This is what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to do, right? Just because I'm a little curious. I want to get a little check, a little double check. They had 84 wins last year. I think they have less than that, 78 wins. You know what? We're going to go with the under. We're going to say the Mets are going to end up getting to that. I'm going to give the Mets the over just because I want to root for the Mets, and we'll give the Marlins the under, but I could see these teams flip, even though the Mets do look significantly better than the Marlins. Now, we have one team left, and I'm really not all too sure how much they're worth talking about. Now, this team's located down in D.C., the former Expos, the Washington Nationals. Now, the one big thing with the Washington Nationals is that they're young, they have some old heads, and they're just kind of seeing what works. I mean, they have C.J. Abrams, who they acquired in the Soto trade. They also have, I believe, Mackenzie Gore from the Soto trade, so they're trying to see if those two guys are any good. I like that they're actually trying to see if Mackenzie Gore is worth their while, and same thing with C.J. Abrams. It seems like C.J. Abrams is definitely going to be worth this team's while. Seems like he's a pretty solid shortstop, so that's awesome for them. We saw Lane Thomas have a halfway decent season last year. He's still pretty young. I like Keibert Ruiz. I think he's a great catcher, switch hitting catcher, nice little threat there. I think that's a nice player you're going to see develop a little bit more over the next coming seasons. Joey Gallo, a guy that we don't know if he's good at baseball still. So I'm really intrigued to see how Joey Gallo works out. They also went out and picked up another guy, Jesse Winker, a similar type of bat to Joey Gallo, another lefty. But I think adding these guys in there, just gives your team a hell of a lot of power and pop they didn't have before. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, hopefully we see Joey Meneses bring back another great season like he did last year. But this team is it doesn't have a ton. I know Luis Garcia Jr., second baseman, coming up to the system. He had a pretty decent season last year. Victor Robles, oh my God, he's been on this team forever. Can't believe he's still... Dude, they got him in 2013. How old is Victor why is Victor Robles so young but so old at the same time? This dude is he's only 26, about to be 27, and I feel like he's been in the league since I was a little kid. I mean, hell, this guy's been in the league since 2017. He's been in here since he was 20, so that makes a lot of sense now. Had to just double check that. But yeah, I think at this point the Nationals are just going to try to see what works, what doesn't work. You know, you have Stone Garrett back there. They have some guys that could potentially add some pop. Maybe we see Carter Keyboom get into the mix. But I'm going to be intrigued to see how those lineup pieces get going. I think they actually have some actual threats in that lineup potentially. I just think it's a lot more interesting than it's been in the years past. And if they really do want to sell at the deadline, you know, guys like Gallo, guys like Meneses, guys like Winker could be awesome options to sell. Now, with that being said, we're going to move over to the pitching side of things, where we see, I love how Steven Strasburg is still on the IR. I mean, this guy just needs to call it a day, be done with it. I don't know why we're still talking about him, because we're not. So, we're going to keep going back to the other actual starting pitchers. I like Josiah Gray. I think he has some potential. You know, like I said, he was a piece they acquired from the Dodgers. I forget exactly what that trade looked like, but I know they had acquired Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray from the Dodgers. I'm just trying to think of the piece the Dodgers got for that. Oh, it was Scherzer. They had traded for Scherzer. That's what it was. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I like the direction they're going. I don't know if Jake Irvin's any good. Never heard of him. Patrick Corbin is terrible. This is the last year of his deal, so I know they're excited about that. And then Trevor Williams is just kind of there to eat innings. Now, their starting pitchers aren't great. They have 2 guys, maybe potentially 3 guys they really want to see anything out of. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Maybe we even see Cade Cavilli, re-enter the starting rotation. You know, coming back off of Tommy John, that would be pretty exciting for this team. But for the rest of the league, I would definitely say not exciting at all. Oh. Want to give me my 2023 stats real quick? Now, as you know, we've been fighting with the 2023 stat sheet literally all day long. Come on. Are we just... Oh. Almost there, guys. All right. Well, this is what we're going to do. I can't bring up the stats. It's like teasing me with the stats. So rather than getting annoyed and being like, oh, what the fuck's going on? I'm just going to power through because this is the last team of the episode, and they're really not that great. I mean, they picked up Dylan Florio. I like that pickup in the bullpen. They really didn't add anything. You know, Kyle Finneran, he's shown to be a halfway decent closer. Tanner Rainey hasn't been terrible, at least from my remembrance. And I don't know what Hunter Harvey has to add, but if he can add something, that's awesome. But what I will say is that this is just a very underwhelming, unexciting team. Yeah, I mean, that's what they are. They're just not that fun. But I would definitely say they're going to be bad. But in terms of losing anything in free agency, I would argue they really didn't lose anything at all. I mean, it didn't take a hell of a lot to sign anybody to make this team better. I think even just signing Gallo has made this team better. So I like their free agency moves. Now at 66.5 wins, I'm actually going to say I think we see the over at 66.5. I think they just got a lot better from last year, and as a team that won 71 games last year, I could easily see them winning 66.5. Now, with that being said, folks, I really do appreciate you guys coming out, listening to me when you can. You know, I make these videos just kind of for fun. You know, hopefully I get people to listen, maybe share a little sports fun, sports knowledge, sports info. So with that being said, you know, don't be afraid to drop a comment down in the comment section, drop a like on YouTube or Spotify, and throw a follow/subscription on the YouTube/Spotify. Be greatly appreciated. You can always see when new videos are coming out. Don't forget me on Instagram at _idiots_podcast_network. Lots of underscores, but you can find me there. I do post every time we have a nice little podcast episode. I always post, try to keep it interesting. So be on the lookout for more of these divisional episodes going through the teams. Very excited. And so with that being said, folks, I really appreciate you coming out, listening. And with that being said, I'll see you later. And how you doing? How you living? How you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast. Now, of course, I'm your host, Idiot Number 0. My name's Zach. Back as always for another show on the Idiots Podcast Network. vibes. So with that being said, we're going to keep hopping along on this, divisional series, going through each team, kind of previewing what we think, how their free agency went, what this team might look like opening day. Now, of course, there are still some pending big name free agents. We did talk about them in a previous episode. I do recommend you go check that one out. Me and old buddy of mine were able to get back together and have a lot of fun with that. So I do highly recommend you check that out. I believe that's episode number 17. But to keep this episode rolling, we're just going to move right along, and we're going to talk about the NL West this episode. A very exciting division. I think they have one real big bad, but it's going to be interesting for this division. Now, the first team we're going to talk about is going to be the San Diego Padres. Now, the one thing I would definitely define this team as is mid-city. I don't think this team is really anything all too special anymore. Now they still do have some pieces in terms of Machado, and Bogarts is a phenomenal player. Fernando Tatis is a great player. Jay Cronenworth has had some decent years, but I think once you start getting towards the back end of this lineup, you just realize how ugly it is. Now, they really are a team that's in dire need of a true DH. I think that would really help this team just fortify and really look halfway decent, but they just don't right now. Now, we're going to see Luis Capisanuso. Yeah, that's as good as it's going to get. He's a young rising catcher coming up through the system, drafted by the Padres, 25 years old. I think he's added a little pop last year, 16 home runs, batted .261 through about 500 at-bats. That's pretty decent. Guy had a halfway decent year. Now, I think he's going to be able to get better. I think we're going to be able to watch another good young potential catcher start really just contributing to his team, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But outside of these top four guys between, Tatis, Cronenworth, Bogarts, and Machado, I think it's just a little rough. We look at Jurickson Profar. He's not necessarily a great bat. Jose Azcar, Matthew Batten, even Ha-Seong Kim. I wouldn't argue that all these bats are necessarily phenomenal. So I think just in terms of the RBI getting department, they might have some issues this year. But, they didn't really fortify anything in the lineup. They did go out and get a couple bench pieces in terms of bats. And, one of them is Kyle Higgyosha. So Higgy's not a bad guy, but he's a great defensive catcher, if anything. We see Oscar Mercado getting picked up, the halfway decent outfield depth spot guy. So that's not bad. Now, in terms of pitching, their starting pitching is just light. Having Pedro Avila and Randy Vasquez kind of rounding out your rotation is rough. Now, I know they're younger guys. You're kind of seeing what they got, but I just personally am not a fan, and I don't think that this really did enough, especially for what they did with their bullpen, to make this team worthwhile. Now, picking up a guy like Michael King, putting him in your starting rotation, I believe he was a reliever for the Yankees for a while. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments section, but Michael King's going to be an interesting start for them. We've seen Yu Darvish get a little bit worse and worse with age, entering his age 37, going on 38 season. So I could see him potentially getting the boot at the trade deadline, maybe moving to a contender. And of course, I like Joe Musgrove, but there's just not a lot to that starting rotation outside of Joe Musgrove. Now, I'm personally a big Yu Darvish fan, and I don't know exactly how great Michael King is. I just think, it's gonna be interesting for this team. Now, I'm gonna quickly pull up Michael King just because I want to see what this guy got. I really did think he was a reliever for a while, and to my surprise, he really was a reliever for the most part. He did have 100 innings last season. First time he surpassed 100 innings in his career. Normally sits about that, I would say about 55 mark. He's been a decent reliever, pretty young. But transitioning guys from that bullpen to the starting spot has been tough in the past. They were able to do it with Lugo last year to some success, so I give them a lot of credit there. But to do it again is going to be difficult. Now, with that being said, they did go out and do a lot to this bullpen. They really wanted to redesign this bullpen. I think they did a very good job of that by picking up two foreign guys, UK Matsui, who I think is going to have a lot of success and really fight for that closer role, and Woo Suk Go, guy that came over from the KBO League. He's had a lot of success over there, so I'm very excited to see these two young guns kind of just get it going, see what they have to offer in the league. And I really do think that these two guys are going to be very detrimental to this team. Or not detrimental, Jesus Christ. I think they're going to be a very big positive force for this team moving forward this year. I just really think they've had a lot of career success over in Japan and Korea, and I don't know exactly how easy it is to transition from those Asian leagues over to America, but I'm going to be very excited definitely watching them. And then they also picked up Wandy Peralta, a lefty from the Yankees who had an unbelievable amount of success. So they really did fortify this bullpen. It looks pretty solid to me. But some of my big issues are, you did a lot to the bullpen, but I don't think it did enough everywhere else. So that's my one big thing with the Padres right now. It just felt like they were sellers, but I think I don't know. I think they're gonna be rough. But with that being said, if they were to go out there and pick up another big name free agent, I could see it happen. I could see them going out there and going, hey, we're going to go try and make a run at Cody Bellinger, see if we can get him to play in the outfield. Maybe they make a run at JD Martinez or a different style DH, but I really do think they could use another bat in that lineup, just something to get that team going. Now, with that being said, their win-loss total, it's up at 100, not 100, it's up at 81 and a half wins. And I'm actually going to take the under on this team. Excuse me. I don't think they're going to hit 81 and a half wins. I know that doesn't seem all too high, I really do think they're going to be a sub 500 team. I personally hate the pitching, and they're a Joe Musgrove injury away from having no starting pitching. So, that's just something that's a little scary to me if I was a Padres fan going into this season. Now, with that being said, we're just going to move on to the next team here, and that's going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the Los Angeles Dodgers are definitely the winners of free agency. They went out there, they picked up the two biggest names in Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So congratulations to them. But at the same time, fuck the Dodgers. Hate those guys. Fucking my Mets over. We tried to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto, but they didn't screwing us over with their good team and quality organization. But to actually start talking in this team in all seriousness, really everything is just unbelievably impressive from top to bottom. Everything you look at, this team is phenomenal. I mean, they have future Hall of Famer, I'm not Shohei. I'm going to say future Hall of Famer Freddie Freeman and potential Hall of Famer Mookie Betts, two guys who've had unbelievable careers up to this point. So I'm going to be very excited to see how they keep playing moving forward. And they have a bunch of quality role players like Max Muncy, who's able to hit 30 home runs, They picked up Teoscar Hernandez, another big bat to the lineup. Max Muncy, Will Smith, a great catcher. And we even saw a great season out of James Outman, their center fielder last year. And I expect them to get a good chunk out of Gavin Lux moving forward. A guy who plays shortstop for them was injured last year, but I think is going to have a lot of success, as he's really going to get his feet underneath him. So with that being said, Dodgers, their bench, it's good enough. They got Chris Taylor, one of the ultimate util guys in the league. So now we're going to move on to their starting rotation, and I think their starting rotation is definitely the most interesting part to this team right now. So I say that because, they go out there, they pick up Yoshinobu Yamamoto, they pick up Tyler Glass. Now, they retain Clayton Kershaw, but they also have so much more. Now, I know they go out there, they pick up James Paxton as a depth signing. I don't think it's a bad idea. You really only need him to get, potentially 60, 70 innings out of him, and you'll be content. But I think that back end of your rotation right now is a little rough. I do love Bobby Miller at the 3-hole right now. A very young guy coming up through the Dodger system, has had a ton of success, flame-throwing righty. So I'm very excited to see how Bobby Miller progresses. But they just have so many injuries in their starting rotation. Currently Clayton Kershaw is listed as on the injury report just because he had a shoulder surgery as of the 3rd of November. So just so you guys know. But between him, Gonsolin, Walker Buehler, who's now going to be 2 years removed of Tommy John, and Dustin May, I think those 4 guys, really just getting their arm back in working shape and throwing them back in the rotation. If we can get those players back in full form, we might even see Bobby Miller get pushed to the bullpen, which is unbelievable how stacked this rotation is. But I think this rotation just gets better and better as the year goes on. We see more of these phenomenal pieces get added back into the rotation. So they didn't really do all too much in the bullpen, though. Bullpen was pretty much left to be. And honestly, I don't hate it. I like Ryan Yarbrough there. He's a quality lefty. Blake Tribe didn't really get any playing time last year, I believe, due to injury. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how he does again. Then let's not forget about Joe Kelly. We've seen a lot of success out of Joe Kelly. And Brusdar Graterol, a rather young guy, was actually a starter coming up to the organization, but has become a reliever and a very quality one at that. So awesome that we see Brusdar Graterol in that role. And then we also see Evan Phillips, current closer for the team, had a great season last year. So I think if anything, they might run into some trouble in terms of their bullpen. They just have some names that might be a little shaky for some people. Maybe they go out there pick up one more piece. I thought a Liam Hendricks type arm would have been perfect for them just to round out free agency. But regardless, they're still winners of this free agency pool, even if they don't get back JD Martinez. Well, there's no reason for them to. So, with that being said, the Dodgers are currently at 103 and a half wins. That's their win-loss total. I think they're going to be under 103 wins. I think this team's somehow going to win 100 games, but stay under 103. And I say that because their starting rotation is so rough right now. I think it's going to be a little interesting early in the season. Obviously they have such amazing bats that it might not matter, but I think if anything, that pitching might be a little slow in the beginning of the year. We might really progress towards just a solid 100-win Dodger team. So now we're going to move on to another NL West franchise, and that's going to be the San Francisco Giants. Now, the Giants, if they're going to make me put, the way I feel about this team in the words, it's just, it's just so Now, as Fangraphs slowly loads up my roster, I'll tell you why I think it's so Now, I don't mind the signing of KBO star Jung-Ho Lee, 25-year-old center fielder. I expect him to have some decent success in the league. I'm excited to watch him play. We did see a storm of foreign guys enter the league this year, so I'm very excited to see how that turns out. But they really didn't add anything to the lineup. We see Thairo Estrada is, a solid guy. They went and picked up Jorge Soler, who had a decent season last year. Personally, a guy I wouldn't have went out and signed, but someone that clearly, helps that lineup out. They have a ton of lefties, ton of righties. They have a good amount of balance, but I just don't like the Giants roster. I don't like this team. I mean, it just seems to be full of guys who get the job done to a extent. Like, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a bunch of contact guys and one power hitter that hits at about a 230 average all season long. And, Conforto can be decent. I want to see what he has in the tank. That's another guy I would like to see, if he was ever going to be what we all thought Conforto was going to be. And then it's rough everywhere else. I don't like Mike Yastrzemski. I don't think Wilmer Flores is that great. They have Patrick Bailey, a catcher that's come up through the system. They're hoping he's going to pan out more so than, I forgot what their last catcher was. They had another big catcher, Joey Bart. They're hoping he pans out better than Joey Bart did. So we'll see how that rolls. But in terms of their lineup, I just think their lineup's a little atrocious. Just doesn't seem to have enough to get the job done to me. Now, as we say that, I want to move on to their starting rotation. I think their starting rotation is a little bit more fun now. They do have some injuries, and this rotation is going to get significantly better with time, but for the meantime, we'll talk about it as it lies. So I like Logan Webb at the top. Logan Webb's a solid guy, get you a ton of innings, quality pitcher. Jordan Hicks, they picked him up this offseason. I like that signing. I think he's another starting pitcher that's just going to add a lot of value to this team, be a solid 2-3 guy. But the rest of the guys they have in this rotation are fairly young, kind of more or less prospects between Keaton Winn, Tristan Beck, and Kyle Harrison. So I don't necessarily know how that's going to pan out. I don't know enough about them to make a general statement, but that never makes me feel good when, you have a solid guy or two and just some pieces that might pan out. You got a lot of question marks. But I will say, Alex Cobb coming back off a hip surgery and Robbie Ray coming back off of Tommy John. If you're not going to be able to get Ray this season, I could get that, but maybe get him later in the season. But getting those two pitchers back and getting them back into the rotation, I think adds so much value to this team. It really helps this team get up and going and just, maintain a quality team. I think this is a team that could, this Giants roster is the type of roster I could see making a wild card. They have everything they need. They have solid pitching if they can get some of their guys back off of the IR. They have a very good bullpen, which we have yet to get to. And although I don't like their lineup, they're able to hit the ball. And I think that goes to say something, as I've seen the Mets, not be able to hit with runners in scoring position and how that can just kill a franchise. Now, we'll get into their bullpen. They went out. They didn't really do all too much. They picked up Amir Garrett, and they picked up Ethan Small. Now, I think those are smaller adds. Get two more lefties in the pen. I don't mind that at all. I think that's quality. But really, the guys they've already had is really the stars of the show. They have the Roger brothers and Tyler and Taylor. They also have Camilo Duvall, who had an unbelievable season last year, a very young closer with unbelievable, flame throwing action on that fastball. So I'm excited to see him back in action. And I don't mind this bullpen at all. I think it's a decent bullpen. It's hard to have a shitty bullpen going into the year, unless it's god awful. It's not bad. You got to kind of figure out what that bullpen's going to look like moving forward. But I don't mind the Giants. I think the Giants they're just a funky looking team now. Their current win loss totals at 81.5, and I could see them getting to 81.5. I think they're going to be like an 82 and 80 team that just feels very Giants to me. It's very much the way those San Francisco Giants like to operate. They always feel like they have a very wacky, weird franchise, and they just figure a way to make it work. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next team, and that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had an unbelievable playoff run last year. I really wish they were able to go and win the World Series, but that just did not happen. Fortunately, though, we were able to see this team has a ton of potential. Now, of course, they still have guys like Ketel Marte, guys who we thought were going to be the Corbin Carroll. But now we have Corbin Carroll, a guy who's been unbelievable, setting rookie steal records. I've never seen a guy get 54 steals his rookie year and hit 25 home runs, bat 285. I mean, he was phenomenal. So that was a great, signing, and at the same time, great drafting. So good for them. Now, they didn't do a ton this season in terms of bats, but the moves they made, I really did enjoy. Now, they went and added Lourdes Gurriel Jr. That was a great pickup. Now, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. They already had him. They re-signed him. So I don't think that was a bad pickup at all. That was a nice re-sign, get a quality outfielder in there. That always helps to shore up the corners. They also went out and picked up Eugenio Suarez, a guy who's been able to play the hot corner and shortstop, be able to hit for power and play with some consistency. I know he has a firearm over there, so he'll be able to rifle that ball over to Christian Walker for effective outs in the field. I think that was a great pickup for them. And they also went out and picked up another lefty bat in Jock Peterson. They needed another lefty bat in this lineup, a real pop lefty bat. And Jock Peterson's going to be an awesome guy to help protect Christian Walker and Eugenio Suarez. So I think that's going to just add a lot to this team. Now, some of the younger guys we get to see just step up and play is going to be Alek Thomas and Gabriel Moreno. Those two guys, they haven't hit their Corbin Carroll stride yet, but I think we're going to see Gabriel Moreno really come into his own this season, really just be able to, get a true full season's worth of catching in and show us that he's, the next big thing. So I'm excited to see how that pans out for them. I really do like that lineup. I think it's just a lot of quality there, something you don't get from every team. And yeah. Now, what I will say is the one thing that I describe this team as is just being one starting pitcher away. Now, the reason why I say that is because, I love Zach Gallen. I think Zach Gallen was a phenomenal trade, that when they went out, traded Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen. I think they've won that trade as to this point. They also have Merrill Kelly, a guy who's had a lot of success with this team, has played in the World Baseball Classic for Team USA, so I love that. They also went out and picked up Erod. Erod's been a quality arm for a long time, so that was an awesome pickup. I like those three guys. You have a nice little setup for your first three starters. Now in the back end, you have Brandon Fad, who I personally don't mind. I know you want to see him develop a little bit more at the age of 25, but I don't know how much more time with this type of roster you want to let this guy sit and develop. And same thing with Ryan Nelson. I think you might run into a similar issue there, but going out there signing a guy like there was one dude from Milwaukee I really loved this year, and I can't remember his name. But maybe they pick up a guy like that. I don't know. I think this team really is just one more halfway decent starting pitcher away from just really making me feel so confident in their ability to get back into the playoffs and really make a World Series run. Now, with that being said, they didn't really do much to the bullpen. Another team that kind of was very okay with what they had, and I'll say they didn't need to add anything. I don't necessarily love Joe Mantiply being your number one lefty with Andrew Southbank, but we'll see how that goes. Now, they do have some decent arms in there, between, Kevin Ginkel, Miguel Castro, who's, been up and down and up and down. And we also see Paul Sewald, the former Met, in there, with Miguel Castro. Paul Sewald had a ton of success last year. A guy who's been pretty good in his Arizona Diamondback career, so I expect him to have success, but I think this pitching might just need a little bit more. But I really do love the additions that Arizona made this offseason. I think that they've done a great job in just really effectively building up an already great team. So, with that being said, folks, they're at a surprising 83.5 win total. And I'm going to be honest with you, folks, I'm smashing the win total. I think they're going to win more than 83.5 games. I could see this being a 92, 93 win team, and that's really where I'm going to place them as a 92, 93 win team. I think they might be the number one wild card team in their, in the NL, and I really do like the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think they're one of the most solid teams in the league. Now, with that being said, we're going to have to talk about a very sad and disappointing organization, a team that I just haven't seen have much success in a long time. Now, they did have a little bit of success with a guy getting into the Hall of Fame by the name of Todd Helton, but the Colorado Rockies are just kind of sputtering. They don't feel like they're getting anywhere, like they're moving anywhere or getting any better. So we're going to quickly run through this team. I'll be honest with you, I think it's funny they still have Charlie Blackmon. I mean, he's not going to go anywhere. He's a Rocky for life, but when you have him being your kind of your captain of this team, I'm not all too confident in it. I know Nolan Jones is a rather young guy they want to see explode onto the scene, and he actually had a pretty decent season last year, so I know they're hoping for more out of him. Chris Bryant has just been atrocious since he signed that big money deal, and I like Ryan McMahon. I like him. He plays a solid third, second base, lefty power hitter. They definitely need that, because they just don't have a ton. I mean, they do have a little bit of pop, but it's not hard to have pop up in Colorado. Mile High Stadium, you hit those balls, they just fly. But I'm just not a fan of really what they have going. It's a rough lineup. Maybe we see them trade catcher Elas Diaz. I know he was a an all-star last year, so I could see them potentially moving on from him. But I just don't think this roster gives you anything. Like, I don't like Brandon Rogers. I don't think he's super duper great. I love Jacob Stallings as a backup catcher, which he is. He's an awesome defender. Just hasn't really been able to get consistent offense. But really, the thing we need to talk about is just the lack of pitching. I know it's hard to pitch up in Colorado, but god damn, these guys are just rough. Like, Kyle Freeland is not great. Cal Quantrill has played a little bit. He's young. He might have some success. I don't know. He's Austin Gomber's nothing crazy. Dakota Hudson's nothing crazy. And, the only good real starting pitcher they have, I would argue, is, Herman Marquez. And even him, it's a little rough right now. So unless they're going to be able to get him back from Tommy John this season, this starting rotation really has no true ace to it. It's going to be a little rough. Their bullpen is seemingly just as bleak. So rather than waste time here and act like I'm going to enjoy talking about this team, I'm not. I don't like this team. I don't think it's good. I don't think they didn't win or lose free agency, because they didn't lose or gain pretty much anything. So with that being said, I'm excited to stop talking about the Rockies now. This is what we'll do. I had them at 60.5 wins for the over-under. I said, why bother? Because this line is stupid. No reason to even bother. This might be one of the worst teams I've seen in a long time. So with that being said, yeah, that's the NL West. The NL West is a fun division. I think we're really going to see the Dodgers and Diamondbacks pop out like crazy. Maybe we see a surprise Giants team, but I don't know how that's going to float. So we'll see how it goes as the season progresses and, as we get to opening day. Now, with that being said, I really do appreciate you guys coming out, listening, enjoying the show with me. It means a lot. Now go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment. I'm here. I respond. So trust me. Now that if you made it this long in the video, I appreciate your ears for listening. Go have a great day, and I'll see you later, folks. And how you doing? How you living? How you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast. Of course, this is brought to you by the Idiots Podcast Network, full of great podcasts. So, I'm back. I'm your host. My name is Zach. I'm always going to be your idiot number 0. And we're carrying on with the Divisional series. We're talking about all these teams, seeing what they're looking like going into opening day, how, kind of what we think about each team. Well, we're just gauging them up a little bit of a team preview for each division. So, we've already done a couple of these, and we're just going to keep on rolling. So this episode is all about the AL West. So with that being said, what we're going to do is we're just going to start it right off and start talking about the World Series winners, Texas Rangers. And so I would say, one great way to describe this Rangers team is that the lineups got popped, but it looks like the pitchers got popped. I mean, it's tough when you have Scherzer, DeGrom, and Tyler Mahle all out with major injuries. 2 Tommy John and a back surgery for a herniated disc. It's just that's a lot of injuries to your pitchers. But the reason why I say that is because this lineup hits bombs. They're able to. They have an unbelievable amount of pop to the bat. A really, really fun team. And just to quickly go through it, I mean, they didn't add anybody to this lineup. This lineup is, I would argue, as fresh as it could be. They probably lost I think they lost Mitch Garver over the offseason, so that was really their only major loss in terms of the lineup. And I love this lineup, man. I mean, they could stand to get a new DH, but it looks like they want to try out Wyatt Langford, former 4th-round draft pick from, with the Rangers, so that's cool. Looks like he was actually picked last year, so even cooler. Guy's pretty young, he's 22. We're also going to watch Leody Taveras play, another young guy that's come up through the system. They love Jonah Heim. He's been a great catcher for them. A little switch hit in action. Guy's got good pop to the bat. But this whole lineup is good. They got a lot of fun pieces. Nathan Lowe has always been solid. I'm excited to see another season of Evan Carter, see how good he really is, because he had a great playoff run, but I want to see how solid he's going to be throughout a whole season. So, with that being said, I love the lineup. I love the pop ability. I love that they just hit the damn ball. I don't even mention Corey Seager. That's how and Adolis Garcia. I don't even need to mention them. That's how good this lineup is. And just, now adding them, it's even better. Oy, excuse me. So, with that being said, we're going to quickly move on to the pitching side of this, where, bullpen-wise, I did see them take up 2 new additions. I like them. I will say that. They went out, they picked up David Robertson, and they also went out and picked up Kirby Yates. Now, I like taking these 2 older veteran relievers, 2 righties, 2 very, very solid, consistent righties. You know what you're going to get? You're going to get some high-end bullpen action out of those guys. Can even potentially close for you if need be. So I think just having that extra option with some extra good relievers there definitely helps. Now, outside of, those 2 guys and Jose Leclerc, I think their bullpen is definitely not good. I think their bullpen's a little rough around the edges, to say the least, and that's just going to be a major point for them. I think if they're not able to close these games out, it's going to be a tough one. Now, let's move on to the starting pitching. I think this is where we really need to talk. Now, as a whole, this team has great starting pitching when you throw in Tyler Mahle, you throw in DeGrom, you throw in Scherzer. This starting rotation looks pretty phenomenal, but with those guys being made of glass right now, having Eovaldi be your number 1 starter. Now, he's had some great seasons over the last couple of years, but I'm not sure to say that, that's your ace. He's a great 2 pitcher. They also have John Gray, guy they signed from Colorado a few years ago, who's been okay. Andrew Heaney, who's okay. And Dane Dunning, who's, had some success throughout his career, still relatively new to the MLB, so I want to see him just get another year under his belt. But he had a great 2023, so hopefully he can continue that. But, just without some of these star-studded pitchers, it's tough. It just makes this lineup look a hell of a lot tougher to, win a contested division. There's a lot of decent teams over here in this AL West, so it's a little difficult trying to figure out what the hell's going on with this team in terms of pitching, but I would like to go see them pick up I'd like to see them retain Jordan Montgomery. I think if they're able to bring that guy back, I think this pitching staff is pretty much fixed, and they're a phenomenal team. Now, right now, with Jordan Montgomery not being back in the team, I would argue this team has lost free agency, but if they're able to retain Jordan Montgomery, they've definitely won free agency for sure. So with that being said, I would like to just see, kind of what happens over the next month with the Rangers. Now, that being said, something I wanted to talk about real quick is, what's it called? Their over-under. So, their over-under set at 89.5 games. For some odd reason, this feels like a team. I'm going to take the over for, even though I'm not super confident, I am going to take the over. I just love the pop in the lineup. There's so much there, so many young guys. I really want to see what Evan Carter is going to bring to the table this year. And I think if they're able to retain Jordan Montgomery, this line is going to look a hell of a lot better. Excuse me. Now, let's move on to our next team. And that's going to be the Houston Astros. Now, they did virtually nothing from this year to last year. Now, of course, they did make one major splash signing, and that would be Josh Hader, picking up a great guy to be your official closer. What an unbelievable pickup for this team. And really, I hate to say it, but this might be a short, kind of go over. Now, what I wanted to say is the way I described this team in my notes was same as great. They didn't need to do anything. The same team is a great team. Why not run it back and see if they can do it all over again? Maybe make a better run. So, let's just start off with the lineup. This lineup bangs, man. I mean, they used to bang on trash cans. Now they just bang. I mean, maybe they still do. I don't know. But this lineup is great. I really do like Jeremy Pena. I think he's got a lot to offer. Chas McCormick's been kind of developing and had a pretty decent year last year. 21 home runs, 14 ribbies. 14 stolen bases on a 250 batting average. That's not bad at all. I expect Jose Abreu to have a better season, more of a signature Jose Abreu season, so I'm excited for that. Bringing back Kyle Tucker, still have Alex Bregman, still have Yordan. So I love this team. This team knows how to hit. They know how to just make a fun product. They put out a great baseball team every single year. I love the team. I really think that they're just solid on the defensive front, on the offensive front. They know how to get the job done with that lineup. Now, moving to pitching, it's a little bit more interesting. So we're gonna see Kendall Graveman. We'll start off with the bullpen. We're gonna see Kendall Graveman just be out for a little bit. He had shoulder surgery in January of 2024. So I don't know how long that's gonna take him being out. Might see him return closer to August, but still, that's going to be an awesome bump for them late in the season. Phenomenal reliever. Could even closed a little bit for the Seattle Mariners, in division rivals. And I really do like this bullpen, man. I mean, Ryan Presley's been a phenomenal closer for the past couple of years. They have Hader in there. Rafael Montero has been a lot better over the last couple of years for them. It was never that great for the Mets. But I think they got enough solid arms, and I think they're pretty much happy with what they have. I think this bullpen will be just fine. Now, in terms of the starters, they do have a nice little spread of starters. Now, of course, leading it off with Justin Verlander, that was a miserable trade with the Mets, but hey, you know what? It is what it is now. So they're going to have their ace leading it off in Verlander. They still have Framber back in there. Christian Javier, hopefully he can have a bounce-back season compared to last year. Hunter Brown, a young guy that's coming up through the system, has played phenomenal so far. And Jose Urquidy, who's been a solid innings eater for them. But to get back a guy like Luis Garcia or Lance McCullers back into that starting rotation, I think can just add a little bit of extra value, really make this starting rotation elite with only one true elite name there. So I think that's pretty awesome. And just Houston they're stacked to the nines. They really didn't need to do a lot. I mean, hell, they won free agency by signing one player. They lost like two guys. I mean, between Hector Neris, Phil Maton, and Ryan Stanek, all three of those guys, I would argue, don't even come close to equaling what a Hader equals. So, they definitely won free agency. Now, that being said, they are at a 92.5 game over-under. Now, I think they're going to smash that over-under. I got a feeling, man, the Astros are back and they smell blood in the water. I really do think they're going to end up being the division winners. I don't see Texas taking the reins again and doing what they did last year in the same capacity, but I do see them being still successful at that. So with that being said, Houston, my divisional favorites, we're going to move on to another team here, and that's going to be the Los Angeles Angels, a team that's become rather sad over the last few seasons, a team that I really want to root for just because, Trout's a Jersey guy and I want to root for my Jersey guy. But, Trout really didn't have too many, he really wasn't there for a whole season last year, played about half the season, had a decent year with what he was able to do. But I expect him to be great, nothing but the same. Hopefully we can get maybe a halfway decent Rendon. It would be cool to see a non-baseball hating Rendon maybe just enjoy baseball a little bit and be halfway decent at it. That would be awesome. Taylor Ward's been a guy they've had in the system for a little bit. He's as developed as he's going to be. He's not a bad outfielder by any means, but I wouldn't argue that he's a great player, entering his age 30 season. They also have Brandon Drury, who's had a great year for them last year. Actually, their home run leader, had the most pop potential by far. They need him in this lineup just because if Trout's not going to be there, they need someone else to bang, and that's him. But outside of that, I mean, Logan O'Hoppe, okay catching prospect they have. Zach Neto, Luis Rengifo, Mickey Moniak, Nolan Shula, Chenol. That's a tough last name, man. Holy shit, Nolan Chenol. So yeah, I just don't like this lineup, man. They don't have anything there that makes me go, oh, that's awesome. Like, I know they picked up Aaron Hicks, and I guarantee you he'll get a good amount of run in this team's outfield this season, just because, Taylor Ward's all right. Mickey Moniak, you don't really know what you have in him. You hope he progresses into something decent, but it's just a rough existence right now being an Angels fan. They don't have much. I mean, Joe Adele was supposed to be the next big thing, but it never really progressed, and this team just hasn't been what everyone's expecting it to be good. And now let's just move on real quick. We'll talk about the starting pitching. Now I like Reed Detmers. The guy's going on his age 24 to 25 season. Hasn't had a ton of success in the league yet. Has shown he's an effective innings eater, but outside of that, has not shown that he's a super effective pitcher. But I think over the next few years, he'll be getting there. He'll look a lot better and better and better. So I do like Reed Detmers. Griffin Canning's rather young. He's a guy who's had pretty much the same success as Reed Detmers, a lot of inning eating. Patrick Sandoval's had some success. He's sitting at right about a 4 ERA. He's not horrible. Tyler Anderson's all right. He's like the same type of thing. And I don't know who Chase Silseth is, but maybe he's a good young prospect you guys have coming up through the system that can really show what he's got. I mean, last year he threw 52 innings. He had a 3.96. More of the same for this team. Now, they did redo pretty much their entire bullpen, picking up Adam Simber, Luis Garcia, Jose Cerno, Robert Stephenson, and Matt Moore. Now, Matt Moore, Robert Stephenson had great years last year. Luis Garcia had an okay year, but the last two, not super great. But what I would say is that this definitely helps. I think they re-bolstered their bullpen. I think they made it a lot better from what it was last year. And just trying to make this team a semi-decent product to put out in the field to watch. Now, I would definitely say they lost free agency. They lost Gio. They lost Grichuk. They lost Ohtani. They're going to lose Aaron Loup probably. They didn't retain CJ Crone. So I just, this team is just rough. They don't have a lot really going for it. It's just a rough existence being a Angels fan. And for Angels fans out there, I'm really sorry that this is just, you guys got to watch Trout have his career wasted away by terrible front office management. I really do wish that the Angels would either trade him or just get good, kid. Now, the Angels, lose some of the biggest losers of free agency. I will say they're at a 72.5 over-under total, taking the under. I just think this team is going to be hysterically bad, and it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the Seattle Mariners. And the Seattle Mariners are a fun baseball organization. They've done a lot. They did lose, Teoscar Hernandez this offseason, but they're a fun baseball team. All right, so, sorry, I just need a little bit of drink of water real quick. But it's a fun baseball team. They went out there this offseason. They always do a little something a little something to say the least they do something every offseason. Now, they did lose Tom Murphy, backup catcher, and they did lose Teoscar to a crazy deal. But I don't think they're really feeling that all too much. I don't think that's going to be a major hit to their ball club. They went out, they picked up Mitch Garver. They went out, they picked up Jorge Polanco. They picked up Mitch Haniger. And I think, these pieces, although they might not pop off the page at you, I think they definitely add a lot of depth and just overall quality bats to this lineup, something that just helps, when you're able to be, have quality bats in your 7-8 hole as well as all the way up at the top of the lineup. It just shows how good your team can be, and you really can hit from any position, making teams have to try to pitch around just about every bat. So I like this lineup. I like how much pop potential they have. I like that they got a good amount of lefties, righties, switch hitters. They got a good amount of different types of people in the lineup to just bang, and I like this lineup, man. I really do. J.P. Crawford's going to be cool. Hopefully we see another great season out of Julio Rodriguez. Jorge Polanco, I'm expecting big things out of. Ty France, I'm expecting another good season out of him. Something special out of Mitch Haniger. I don't like Josh Rojas personally, but I know they have him playing third base right now, so we'll see how that goes. But with that being said, I do like this starting lineup. I think they're just a fun lineup. They got some good defensive potential, a lot of offensive pop, fun team. So let's keep it rolling. We're going to start with these starters, and these starters are fun, man. Logan Gilbert, 26-year-old phenom, has shown that he is a great pitcher in this MLB level. I'm very excited to see what he has. And same thing with George Kirby. Two guys that have come up through the ball club, have shown nothing but success at the major league level, have been awesome, and I expect them to still be awesome. And that's just an unbelievable thing. There's nothing better than having a guy come up through your system, be an awesome pitcher, and stay there. So I'm glad that they have those two guys. Now, two other guys that have been coming up through the system have had some success, but I would say a little bit less. So that's going to be Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. Now, over the next couple seasons, I do expect these guys to get a lot better. Now, I think it's pretty crazy that they have 4 pitchers all under the age of 26 years old that have shown at least a decent amount of major league success. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, this is an unbelievable starting rotation that they were able to build, and I'm glad they haven't split it apart yet. That's really the big thing. They've kept it together, and they've shown that, this is the fruits of their labor, and I'm really, really proud of the Mariners organization for that. Now, of course, their number one ace, their starter, Luis Castillo, has been an unbelievable lights-out starter. Nothing better than that, so congratulations, guys, on creating, I would argue, one of the best starting rotations in the entire MLB. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to their bullpen. They did a little bit. They went out, they picked up Andrew Voth, Jackson Crower, 2 guys I would necessarily not have on my radar, but, might add a little bit of pitching depth in terms of the bullpen for these guys. And they also went out and picked out Gregory Santos, guy who had a lot of success last year with the White Sox with a 3.5 ERA through 61 innings. Now, I like this bullpen. They're pretty solid. Andres Munoz has been good in the past. Same thing with Matt Brash. This lineup knows what they're doing. They know how to go out there. This bullpen knows what they're doing. They know how to go out there, finish these games, get the job done. And I really think with this crop of starters this team has, their bullpen doesn't need to be as good as many other places, but I think it's definitely good enough to get the job done for what this team has become. And I really think this might be a potential number one wild card team in the AL. This is just a very, very fun, very, very well organized roster. So with that being said, their over under totals at 87.5, and honestly, this is my thing. I'm taking the under. I think they're going to get close to it, but they just do feel a little Metsy to me. This is a team that has a lot. They definitely have a lot of pop potential, probably a little bit younger than the Mets. But when you look at this team and I look at the roster construction, it just does eerily remind me of the Mets in terms of their lineup. Now, their pitching is a hell of a lot better, so I do expect them to be a lot better than the Mets. And I think 87.5 wins, I think hitting the over is possible, but I believe them being an 85, 86 win team is probably par for the course. Now, we have one more team to talk about. They're probably the most sad team in the entire MLB, and it's unfortunate that it feels like every division has one of these teams in them. One of these teams that's just perpetually in last place. No one gives a shit about them. They're just kind of there to be there, and that's the Oakland A's in this division. Now, if I could bring up the Oakland A's roster, I think that we'd all find out pretty quickly. There's not a single player on there that you could even name. Okay, that's not true, but for the most part, it's pretty damn hard to name these guys. Outside of Seth Brown, who we know, Shea Langoliers, who's been a prospect coming up through them as a catcher, he's had some success. And then we also see JJ Bleday, guy that was traded over for AJ Puck last offseason. And Estory Ruiz, 51 stolen bags, was an awesome surprise. But this team doesn't shock me. They don't surprise me. They don't do anything for me. And I'm not even going to go to any of these games. I mean, I bought a ticket package, and I told the guys that the only game I'm not going to is the A's series, because all these games are going to be a fucking disaster. I don't want to watch my team win or lose to this unbelievably garbage assortment of players. It's funny because they probably do have a better starting rotation than there's one other team that then the Rockies. They definitely have a better starting rotation than the Rockies. J.P. Sears, Paul Blackburn, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling. They have some guys who have been around the block, done it a couple times. Bullpen-wise, they're all right. I don't think they have anyone necessarily special, but I hate this team, man. I just don't like it at all. They definitely came away as a winner in free agency, but it doesn't take really anything to win in free agency in terms of being a, Oakland A's manager. So I'm just disappointed that this is what the A's have become, and they're not the fun team that I once was able to see in the early 2010s with Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, and they had Donaldson on that team at one point. And they just had a really fun roster, and that roster is unfortunately no longer constructed. So Their win loss totals at 56.5. This is another team I said, why bother? Why bother even throwing money on this? It's not worth it. They're probably gonna suck just as bad. And you wanna bet on a team that's gonna suck so bad they're gonna win maybe 56 games? Yeah, not worth it. I would take the under, but it's still not worth it. So with that being said, folks, I really do appreciate you guys coming out, listening, enjoying the time you guys spend with me. It means a lot. So, with that being said, don't be afraid to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, throw a comment down below. All are appreciated. You can come find me on Instagram at the_idiots_podcast_network. A lot of underscores, but it's pretty fun. You can always go there, check out for updates, see what's going on, see when new episodes are coming out. Don't be afraid to hit me up on there. I'm always happy to respond and get back to you. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys coming out, listening, and have a phenomenal day, folks. And how you doing? How you living? How you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast. Of course, this show is brought to you by the Idiots Podcast Network. Find them on Instagram at the Idiots Podcast Network. Of course, I'm your host. My name's Zach, Idiot Number 0. I'm glad to be back as always in the studio. Cooking up some more content for the boys. Want to get those MLB juices flowing before the season starts, before we hit opening day on March 28th. So with that in mind, we're kind of just doing divisional previews, going through each division, talking about the team, seeing if they lost or won free agency to this point, and really what their teams might look like going into opening day, which is really just about a straight up month from right now. So get excited for the season, boys. Now, with that being said, we're going to do the NL Central this episode. Eventually had to hit those Central folks. Some of the more less exciting teams, but I would definitely say the NL Central's got a little bit of pop to it. Now, with that being said, we're going to get right into it. They're talking about the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals, they had a bad year last year. I believe they finished in last place of their division. They did. They were 71 and 91. They had a rough season last year. It didn't look good. Goldie had a down year. Arenado had a down year. And, I think that's and calling those down years is kind of funny because, you look at him. Arenado he hit 266 with 26 bombs. Goldie hit 268 with 25 bombs. I mean, they were practically the same player. So I think that, as long as they can maintain that with some of their other younger guys, coming up and doing what they got to do, hopefully we could see more out of that. Now, they really didn't add anything in terms of starters for the lineup. I don't mind. Actually, I guess they did. We'll say that they added Brandon Crawford to be their starting shortstop, and honestly, I don't mind that. I don't think he had a great season last year, but Brandon Crawford shown us time and time again that he's a quality MLB veteran. So with that being said, they do have a couple other guys on here, some question marks between guys like Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, Tommy Edman. They really need they need these guys to definitely produce and really, just be a little bit more, and I think that could help this lineup. I mean, like I said, they didn't add. I don't think they needed to add. They still have Wilson Contreras. Lars Newbar has been getting better year in and year out. So I'm just excited to see kind of where this team goes from here. I think this lineup is fine as is right now, I don't think there's really anything else this Cardinals team could have went and added that would have really dramatically improved this lineup. Now, let's see. What I will say is I guess maybe a DH because I'm not all read up on Brendan Donovan, but he did have a decent season last year as their leadoff bat. They still have Dylan Carlson, rather young guy drafted in the first round a couple of years ago by the Cardinals. Hopefully he develops. Now, not a lot to talk about in terms of the starting lineup. It's just it's not bad, but I really do think this team is gonna bounce back, and those were the words I wrote down specifically for this team is just bounce back. I think they're gonna be a lot better than they were last year, and one of those main reasons is gonna be the starting rotation. Now, Steven Matz has been unbelievably solid for this team since he's arrived in St. Louis from New York. He's been pretty solid, so good on him. Now, they also went out and picked up Lance Lynn, former Cardinal, guys, and I guess he's coming back to end his career as a Cardinal. He's been a decent pitcher throughout his career. Had definitely a little bit of a hiccup last year, with a 5.73 ERA through 32 games. Now, hopefully he can bring that down a little bit. And same thing with Kyle Gibson, two guys that at this point in their career might be just innings eaters, but hopefully the Cardinals think they can get a little bit more out of them, and I think it's very possible. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun for this team, is just to see what those guys have, along with Sonny Gray, a guy they picked up from division rival Cincinnati Reds. I think adding Sonny Gray to this rotation really does help bring a little bit more depth and really a true number one starter to this rotation, so that's awesome. They really do feel like they need a Jordan Montgomery back in this rotation. It just feels a little thin. I don't mind Miles Michaelis, Kyle Gibson, or Lance Lynn, but I don't think those are really the guys you want rounding out your rotation. I think if they were to add a Jordan Montgomery back rather than a Lance Lynn, I think that would have made this team just 10 times better than they already are. But it is what it is. Now, with that being said, their next thing is the bullpen. And now in the bullpen, they definitely made some awesome moves. They went out, picked up Andrew Kittredge, a guy who's had a lot of success in Tampa Bay over the last couple of years. Now, I believe he was injured last year, only was able to get in about 11 innings. So, hopefully he's able to bounce back the same as he once was. We saw Keenan Middleton from the New York Giants, oh my God, from the New York Yankees come over after having a pretty good season, 50 innings with a 3.3 ERA. So that's going to be a nice little addition there. I don't think this bullpen is all too bad. They do have Jojo Romero and John King as their lefties. Definitely not too shabby. And then they got a great closer in Ryan Hazley and a nice setup man in Gallegos. So I definitely like where this bullpen is heading. I think it's a solid bullpen. I would not be stressed out about this part of this team, but I'm definitely just I'm a little stressed out about this pitching, man. This starting rotation just feels a little flimsy. So, like I said, I really want to see how that gets ironed out throughout the season. Now, with that being said, in terms of free agency, they definitely did a great job in free agency. They didn't need to go out there and really pick up any crazy high-end free agent. They went out there, rebolstered the starting rotation, rebolstered the bullpen, and added a little bit of depth to that lineup in terms of Matt Carpenter and Brandon Crawford. So I do like those signings. I think they did a decent job. And really, I can guarantee you that they're going to be better than they were last year. They just had an unbelievably bad season, but I don't think that we're going to see them be worse than the Pirates again. As a matter of fact, I think they're going to be the team that goes from a little worse to first action this year. Now, with that being said, they're currently at 84.5 games at their total win-loss ratio. They're over for wins. So I'm going to hammer the over 84.5. I think they get closer to 90 wins. I really do think this Cardinals team is going to be pretty solid. Now, I know it's a big bump up, pretty much 13.5 games from last year, but I do think that this team is going to be very, very solid. I think the Cardinals just have a good opportunity to make a nice little playoff run, especially in a rather weak NL Central, especially a division that's just gotten weaker and weaker as the years have gone on. Now, the next team we're going to bounce over to is going to be the Chicago Cubs. The Cubbies have had a fun team, and the best part of all is that they most recently re-signed Cody Bellinger. So that makes my life a hell of a lot easier talking about this ball club, because I'll be blatantly honest with you, without Bellinger, this lineup looked a little bland, a little stale, and now with a guy like Cody Bellinger back in this lineup, I think it just adds so much extra depth. I mean, you now have another guy who can steal bags, hit at a high percentage, hit bombs, and he hits from the left side of the plate. So all of those are just very advantageous towards this team. It gives them a power bat in the middle of the lineup that can be there to not only be their main power bat, but to also protect guys like Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ, some of the better hitting righties in this entire lineup. Hell, even Seiya Suzuki, adding this type of lefty bat into this lineup, I think really adds a lot of high quality at bats that they would have not otherwise had, and especially bringing back a guy like Cody Bellinger, a possible MVP from last year. Definitely, I believe he did get some votes, but I'm just excited now. I'm really happy that they went out and they were able to sign Bellinger. I think this makes this team just a hell of a lot more fun now. In terms of what they added to the lineup, they outside of Bellinger getting him back, I mean, they added Michael Busch. I don't know anything about you, Michael Busch. Maybe you're good, maybe you're bad. I don't know. So I'm not going to make any objective, you're good or bad. Now, they do have Patrick Wisdom, a guy who's gotten a lot of time at first base, has had a little bit of success there. And they also have Garrett Cooper, brought him in from San Diego. Was previously in Miami. Before that, I believe he was somewhere in Milwaukee. Now, I think Garrett Cooper is going to end up becoming the starting first baseman if Michael Bush just doesn't pan out. But I don't mind the way this team has been constructed. I think having a guy like Garrett Cooper come in off the bench to be able to play first base is just nice, and it's a great pickup for them. I think they did a good job there. Now, in terms of the starting rotation, Justin Steele coming off a phenomenal year from last year with a 3.0 ERA through 30 games. Couldn't have asked for anything more out of the 28-year-old. You also have Kyle Hendricks, who's still somehow getting it done with that sub-80 fastball. I guess he's got a hell of a movement on that pitch, so good for you, Kyle Hendricks. You're still there. Now, to talk about some of the more interesting things with this lineup, we're going to see young man Jordan Wicks, a guy who's been coming up through the Cubs system, drafted in 2021 at the 21st pick in the first round. He's going to really be getting some more opportunity at the major league level. Last year he pitched 7 games to a 4.4 ERA. I think that we could see Jordan Wicks potentially have a little bit better of a season. Young guy, young arm, trying to see what he's got. So I'm excited to see what they have there. Jamison Tyone, he's mid. He's an innings eater. That's what he is. I'm not going to act like he's anything more. And then we have Shota. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. Shota Imanaga. I hope I said your last name right because you had a hell of a press conference, brother. Honestly, the most exciting free agency press conference I've seen in a long time. I'm very excited to see Shota get on the mound this season, coming over from the Japanese league. Very excited about him. Honestly, I think he's become my favorite free agent in this whole entire 2024 free agency pool just because of that interview he had done post-signing. So, like I said, I'm really, really excited for Shota. I really hope he has a phenomenal MLB debut and career. So excited to see what that man has to bring to the table for the Cubs, and I'm sure the Cubs are just as excited. Now, with that being said, they did do a little bit of work to the bullpen, really only picking up Hector Neris. They did pick up Yency Almonte. Now, I don't know anything about Yency. His first name's kind of funny. It's Yency with a Y. Yency. That's a crazy first name. I kind of like it, though. But that's there. We have Mark Leiter Jr., who, he's 33? Why did I think... Oh, no, that's Jack Leiter. Jack Leiter's the good one. My bad. I was like, why the hell is Mark Leiter 33 years old? I thought he was just drafted. But he is a Texas Ranger. My bad, guys. So... yeah, this bullpen is it's this bullpen. I don't think it's necessarily phenomenal, but I think definitely adding a guy like Hector Neris gives you a solid closer. If Adbert Alzolay is not going to be the same pitcher he was last year, picking up Hector Neris definitely can solidify that closing role. So I'm glad they were able to bring in a guy that can definitely just solidify that. Now, their bullpen is rough. It's definitely rough in comparison to just about everybody else's. Everybody has a decent bullpen right now. It's tough to have a bad one, but I would argue the Cubs have a bad bullpen at this point in the season. Obviously the season hasn't started yet, but I just wanted to make that back for another episode of the Bases Loaded
that being said,
podcast. Now, of course, I'm your host, Idiot Number Zero. My name is Jack.
Just kind of
back as always.
That's where I'm at with
them.
I think they're I like their lineup, but I hate their pitching. Their pitching is not bad, but I could just see this team losing a lot of games in the bullpen. We're going to keep
hopping along on this
sixth inning on
Divisional series, going through each team, kind of previewing what
to hang on. They'll be able to get the job done now.
What this team might look
like. That's my one
day
big thing. Now, they're set
up at
84.5
pending big name free agents.
But I'm actually going to hit the under on that.
Talk about them in a previous episode.
Marcus Stroman. I do recommend you go check that one out.
Really, their number one pitcher. They lost Jameer Candelario, a guy they able to get back together and
have a lot of fun with that.
So with those two guys being lost, I think that's
episode number 17.
Have a little bit more of an effect on this team than we kind of foresaw.
To keep this episode
especially
rolling,
the Stroman play.
Right
not
along,
having Marcus Stroman there.
We're going to talk about the NL West this episode. Very exciting division.
I think they have one
really
big
go the
bad,
innings they need. And just
it's going to be interesting for this division. Now, the first team we're going to talk about is going to be the San Diego Padres.
Now, they're currently set at 84.5.
Thing I would definitely define this team as is mid-city. I don't think this team is really.
I think they might be close to an 82
special anymore. Now they still do have some pieces in terms of Machado.
I don't think they get
Bogart's a phenomenal player.
I really don't think they're going to do anything super duper crazy.
Jake
I really do see them sticking around that
decent years,
that 500 to 510
I think once you start getting towards the back end of this lineup, you just realize how ugly it is now. They really are a team that's in dire need of a true DH. I think that would really help.
It's time to move on to the next team.
Fortify and really look halfway decent.
I finally got this fan graph set up right.
We're gonna see Luis
so we're gonna move on to the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Milwaukee Brewers, they definitely had an interesting offseason.
He's a
we saw them trade away
rising catcher coming up through the system, drafted by the Padres, 25 years old.
I think he's had a little pop last year, trading away their ace.
Batted 261,
one of the best pitchers in the league to the Orioles. So I thought that was definitely an interesting move.
Guy had to have a decent year now.
They lost.
I think
Carlos
he's going to be able to get better. I think we're going to be able to watch another
doesn't look
good
like really
young
they lost
potential
anybody else
catcher
that would be of major,
just contributing to his team. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
But I mean, I guess they
these
lost
top
Winker.
Four guys between Tatis,
Cronenworth, they lost Rowdy Tellez. I like Rowdy Tellez.
I think it's just a little rough.
Andrew Chafin was an okay lefty out of the
He's not necessarily a great.
So I'm not really bothered by the things they lost now.
As Kazar.
With that being said, they did go out there. They picked up Rhys Hoskins. I think that was an awesome addition to their lineup.
Even Kim, I wouldn't argue that all these bats are necessarily phenomenal.
Feels
I think just in terms of the RBI getting department,
I don't mind having Christian Yelich in there. Obviously, he's been a great
hitter. They didn't really fortify anything in the lineup. They did go out and get a couple bench pieces.
At the catcher position has been
one of them is
nothing
Kyle
but great for this
Higgyosha.
team.
So
I'm very
Higgy's not a
excited to see
bad
him
guy.
back. Hopefully, we get a better season out of power hitting shortstop Willie Adames.
Oscar Mercado getting picked up.
Outside of those three guys, we do have Rhys Hoskins coming back in off of a torn ACL.
In terms of pitching,
this team doesn't really have much, if any,
having Pedro Avila
I don't
and
mind
Randy
Bryce
Vasquez
Terang.
kind of rounding out your rotation is
base
rough.
for
Now
this
I know
team,
they're
but
younger guys. You're kind of
still
seeing what
shows
they
that
got.
He needs to make some
I
improvements
just
before
personally
I
am
could
not a fan, and I don't think
call him an
this really
everyday
did enough,
quality,
especially for what they did with their bullpen to make this team
now,
worthwhile.
With that being said, you also have
now
other guys
picking up a guy like Michael King, putting him in your starting rotation. I believe he was a
Joey
reliever for the
Ortiz, rather
Yankees
young guys who are just.
I may please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section, but Michael King's going to be an interesting
some of these rather young guys
who are
Darvish
get a little bit worse and worse
at the
with age,
show level to see what they have.
So
that's going to be one thing interesting.
So I could see him potentially getting the boot at the trade deadline, maybe moving to a contender.
So with that being said,
and of course I like Joe Musgrove, but
they did pick up Gary Sanch, who's going to be number 99.
Starting rotation outside of Joe Musgrove. Now I'm personally a big Darvish fan,
and
I don't know exactly how great Michael King is. I just think it's gonna be interesting.
Just
to
keep on moving.
I'm gonna quickly pull up Michael King just because
we're gonna go down to the starting pitchers. Of course, Freddie Peralta, their ace,
I really
isn't
did think
going
he was a
anywhere.
reliever for a while.
Brandon Woodruff might be coming back off a shoulder surgery.
The most part.
I can never say that right.
100 innings
shoulder
last
surgery.
Season. First time he surpassed 100 innings in his
career. We'll see
what
happens with that. I don't know if he's going to really be coming back this year. It might be more than next year.
He's been a decent reliever, pretty young.
But with that being said,
transitioning guys from that
their starting pitching is okay. I mean, Wade Miley returning at age 37 for another year. He had a great outing last year.
To do it again is
23 outings
difficult.
to the tune of a 3.14.
Now, with that being said, they did go out and do a lot.
Awesome, under 100.
They really wanted to redesign this
season.
Wade Miley, I think they did a very good job of that.
Can replicate that
2 foreign guys, UK Matsui,
ball
who I think is going to have a lot of success and really fight for that closer role.
Guy they acquired from the San Francisco
Giants from the KBO League. He's had a lot of success over there, so I'm very excited to see these 2 young guns kind of just get it going, see what they have to offer.
He did have 86 innings pitched to a tune of a 3.87.
I really do think that these 2 guys are going to be very detrimental to
he's going to do in the starting rotation. Also, I'm excited for that.
They're going to be a very big positive
force. And then DL Hall, a guy that came over in that Corbin Carroll trade. We're going to see how he's able to pitch. Now, he didn't do too bad, but he didn't even make 20 innings last year, so I'm not going to say he's good or bad. We got to see what he
over
has.
to America, but I'm going to be very excited.
Bullpen,
definitely watching
them. When you
them.
look at their 2023
and then they also
stats
picked up Wandy Peralta, a lefty from the Yankees who had an unbelievable
I've never seen so
amount
many
of
guys
success.
under a 2 ERA.
They really did
fortify
this bullpen.
Devin Williams, who's
looks
obviously
pretty
a phenomenal
solid to
closer.
me. But
they had a guy
some of my big issues are, you did a lot to the bullpen, but I don't think it did enough everywhere else.
64 innings.
So that's my one big thing with the Padres right now. It just felt like they were sellers
too. I mean, those were 3 guys with a sub-2 ERA.
I don't know. I think
they had a combined
rough.
Right about 150 innings pitched. That's pretty damn impressive.
Go out there and pick
now they do have some other guys coming out.
I could see it happen. I could see them going out there and going, "Hey,
Joel,
we're gonna go try and make a run at Cody Bellinger,
or Trevor McGill.
Maybe they make a run at JD Martinez or a different style DH."
I mean, they do have some decent names in this bullpen. I think this bullpen's going to be just a-okay, if not.
Now, with that being said,
pretty decent
their
win-loss
total,
so that should be fine. It's definitely going to be an interesting season. And with the loss of Brandon Woodruff,
I'm actually going to take
now this
the under
team definitely lost free agency.
I think that's definitely. I don't think they're going to hit 81.5 wins. I know
really pretty.
That doesn't seem all
free
too high.
And that this team is just making a youth
I really do
movement.
think they're going to be a sub 500
like I said, we saw that.
I personally hate the pitching, and they're a Joe Musgrove injury away from having no starting pitching.
5 guys who are pretty much
that's
considered
just something that's a little scary to me
in this starting lineup.
If I was a
that to me rather interesting. We also see prospect DL Hall.
Now, with that being said, we're just
going
to move on to the next team here,
fifth starting rotation position. So
the Los Angeles
those 6
Dodgers,
guys, it's just
now, the
Los
Angeles
Dodgers,
are
they really are
the
trying to
winners
see
of free
who's going to be
agency.
here
They went
for
out
the
there,
future.
they picked up 2 biggest names.
I don't mind that, but I think selling so early,
Yamamoto.
I think at least selling so early before the season starts, at least it sets the expectation. But I always hate
the Dodgers.
You never want to sell. I always want to see you go out there, try to play out the best team
we tried to get
try to win as many
Yoshinobu
Yamamoto,
but they
now,
didn't.
With that being said, currently this team is at a
77.5
and
quality organization.
And with that being said,
but to actually start talking in this
another team I'm taking the under on. I really do think
really
that
everything is
somehow going to end up in last place in this division
top to bottom.
Really be heavy
everything
sellers at the deadline.
This team is phenomenal.
So, that would not
they have
shock
future
me
Hall of
one
Famer.
Bit. I think that's 77.5 games.
I'm going to say future Hall of Famer Freddie Freeman and potential Hall of Famer Mookie Betts. 2 guys
I just don't think they're as good as the Pirates were last year.
Unbelievable careers up to
this point. That's actually going to be the next team we're talking about.
How they keep playing moving forward. And they have a bunch of quality role players like Max Muncy, who's able to hit 30 home runs.
They were 76
picked up Teoscar Hernandez, another big bat to the lineup. Max Muncy,
for the first time in a long time, I was very excited to see that.
And we even saw a great season out of James
Outman. I would definitely say they lost nothing.
And I expect them to get a good chunk out of Gavin Lux moving forward. A guy who played shortstop for them was injured last year, but I think he's going to have a lot of success.
They went out there, they even picked up some pitchers, so let's just get right into it. Their lineup. I actually like this lineup. Young O'Neal Cruz, we're gonna finally get to see him with a full game, a full year this year, so that'll be very exciting. They still have Brian Reynolds, a phenomenal outfielder that they actually signed to big money. Something that we don't see the Pirates do a lot.
So I say that because
Brian
they go out
Hayes,
there,
young
they
third
pick up
baseman coming up through the system. Hopefully, he's gonna be able to have another strong season. Always good to see improvement year in and year out. McCutcheon's back in the mix.
Now I know they go out there, they pick up
Jack
James
Sawinski, rather young
outfielder
who we saw explode onto the scene last year. Guy I'm
to get
rather excited for going into this year. Then we have Rowdy Tellez, a guy who's been able to hit bombs.
I think that back end of your rotation right now is a little rough. I do love Bobby Miller at the 3-hole right now.
Not really as good as he once was,
coming up through the Dodger system.
He's still a high quality catcher, so you bring him in and help out with.
So I'm very
Henry
excited
Davis,
to see how
your
Bobby Miller
young
progresses.
number 1 overall.
They just have so many injuries
so
in their
I'm definitely intrigued to see him starting to get into this lineup this year with Yasmani Grandal really being the vet to help this guy transition.
Shoulder surgery as of
now second base and outfield. They have Joshua Palacios.
Between him, Gonsolin, Walker Buehler, who's now going to be 2 years removed, Tommy John.
This guy might be all right. I don't know anything about him.
I think those 4 guys know nothing about you.
You might be all right.
Getting their arm back in
working
shape and throwing them back in the rotation. If we can get those players back in full form.
I actually don't mind the rotation.
We might even see Bobby Miller get pushed to the bullpen, which is
put him on a big 5-year deal.
How stacked this rotation is.
I'd like to see that.
I think this rotation just gets better and better as the year goes on. We see more of these phenomenal pieces get added back.
I think adding those guys, Marco Gonzalez, more of an innings eater. Martin Perez has shown a lot of success in the past, so I'm excited to see him back in the action.
Honestly, I don't hate it. I like Ryan Yarbrough there. He's a quality lefty.
I don't mind the starting rotation. It's definitely a weak starting rotation comparatively, but I would argue it's a lot better than than what the Pirates have just put out there in the past.
Success out of Joe
Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to their bullpen. They did do some work. They went out, picked up Chapman, and they also picked up Josh Fleming. Now, Chapman had a pretty decent season last year. Was able to close out the season for the Texans.
Awesome that we see Bruce Gratterall in that role. And we also see Evan Phillips, current closer for the team.
He had a great year, so that was awesome. They picked him up. David Bednar, guy who's been an unbelievable closer for this team.
In terms of their
they still have them.
They just have some names that
a couple other relievers I just like to highlight just for having
maybe they go out there and pick up one more piece. I thought a Liam Hendricks type arm would have been perfect for them just to round out free agency.
Yeah, we're just going to call you Carmen.
Regardless, they're still winners of this free agency pool, even if they don't.
How the hell you say MLOD?
Well, there's no reason for them to.
Melodizinki?
So, with that being said, the Dodgers are currently at 103.5
an enunciation of it. Please, God.
Win-loss total. I think they're going to be under 103 wins. I think this team's somehow going to win 100 games.
With that being said,
stay under 103.
I don't really
and I say that because their
this
starting rotation is so rough right now. I think it's going to be
best in the world.
A little interesting early in the season. Obviously they have such amazing bats that it might not matter. But I think
in terms of injuries, I think we might see
pitching might be a little slow in the beginning of the year. We might really progress towards
come back.
Just a solid 100-win.
Coming off of Tommy John from April of last year.
Now we're going to move on to
we could see him back into the starting rotation this year. I'm very excited to see what he has. And that's going to be
the San Francisco
And really
Giants.
Just, what this Pirates team is going to be. This Pirates team has been
Giants,
nothing but kind of sadness and disappointment for the way I feel about years. And they're finally fun again. So I'm very excited to see how this team does. And I'm very excited to just root for this Pittsburgh Pirates team because honestly, it's a fun squad. There's nothing else I can say besides it's just a really fun squad with a lot of potential, a lot of upside.
think it's so.
So with that being said,
I don't mind the signing of KBO star Jung Ho Lee. 25-year-old center fielder. I expect him to have some decent success in the league. I'm excited to watch him play.
Definitely
we did see a storm of foreign guys into the league.
I mean, they were able to win
76
games last year. They definitely
turns out, but they really didn't add anything to the
why
lineup.
Not?
We see
I think they're definitely going to smash
Estrada, a solid guy. They didn't go. They did and went.
74.5 feels
they went and picked up Jorge Soler, who had a decent season last year. Personally, a guy I wouldn't have went out and signed, but someone that clearly, helps that lineup out. They have a ton of lefties, ton of righties. They have a good amount of balance. But
had an interesting
I just don't like the Giants roster. I don't like this team. I mean, it just seems to be full of guys
Nick Senzel, who I'm not going to really count
get the job done to a
big of a loss.
Extent.
But really, those front two outfielders
this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a bunch of contact guys and one power hitter that hits at about a 230 average all season.
They're just going to move Spencer Steer back out there.
Conforto can be decent. I want to see what he has in the tank. That's another guy I would like to see. If he was ever going to be what we all thought Conforto was going to be. And then it's rough everywhere else. Like I don't like Mike Yastrzemski. I don't think Wilmer Flores is that great. They have Patrick Bailey, a catcher that's come up through the system. They're hoping he's going to pan out more so than I forget what their last catcher was. They had another big catcher, Joey Bart. They're hoping he pans out better than Joey Bart did. So we'll see how that rolls. But in terms of their lineup, I just think their lineup's a little atrocious. Doesn't seem to have enough to get the job done to me. Now,
with that being said,
as we say that, I want to move on to their starting rotation. I think their starting rotation is a little bit more fun now. They do have some injuries in this team. This rotation is going to get significantly better with time.
I don't think that was a bad pickup. I think bringing in a switch hit bat, someone that can really help this lineup.
So I like Logan Webb at the top. Logan Webb's a solid guy, gets you a ton of innings, quality pitcher.
They're going to have another season of Ellie De La Cruz, one of the most exciting prospects.
I like that signing. I think he's another starting
still paired up with Jonathan India, a guy
who's just going to add a lot of value to this team. Be a solid 2-3 guy.
But the rookie of the year.
The rest of the guys they have in this rotation are fairly
a little interesting to me, but I do like their lineup.
More or
I think
less
they have
prospects
a fun
between
lineup.
Keaton Wynn,
And honestly,
Tristan
it's full
Beck,
of a lot
and
of
Kyle
guys
Harrison.
that really haven't made a name
I don't necessarily know how that's going to pan out. I don't know enough about them to make a general statement, but that never makes me feel good when you have a solid guy or two and just some pieces that might pan out. You got a lot of question marks.
Christian and
But I will say, Alex Cobb coming back off a hip surgery and Robbie Ray coming back off of Tommy John. If you're not going to be able to get Ray this season, I get that, but maybe get him later in the season. But getting those two pitchers back and getting them back into the rotation, I think adds so much value to this team. It really helps this team get up and going and just, maintain a quality team. I think this is a team that
let's
could
get through it quickly.
This Giants
what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about the pitchers real quick.
Roster I could see making
kind of just get up out of here. So that being said,
they have
their starting rotation's nice. They still have Hunter Green, young prospect coming up through the system that's shown. He has some fun stuff on the mound. Just needs to iron it out a little bit. But
although I don't like their
lineup,
they're able to hit the ball
to be a starting ace in this
league. That goes to say something.
I'm going to move on to Graham Ashcraft, another young guy that's been coming up through the system. Hopefully, we see a little bit more success out of him than we did last year.
Now,
but
we'll get into
have a little bit more
success. They went out. They didn't really do all too much. They picked up Amir Garrett,
Frankie Montas, and Nick Martinez, two veteran pitchers.
I think those are smaller adds. Get two more lefties in the pen. I don't mind that at all. I think it's quality, but really the guys they've already had is
Padres
really
last season. So I like
stars of the show. They have
that adds a lot of
the Roger brothers,
just a lot of help.
Tyler and
to the rotation.
Taylor.
A lot of help.
They also have Camilo Duvall, who had an unbelievable season last year. A very young closer.
I'm going to pause this.
Unbelievable,
back, folks.
Flame throwing action on that fastball. So I'm excited to see him back in action. And I don't mind this bullpen at all. I think it's a decent bullpen. It's hard to have a shitty bullpen going into the year. Unless it's god awful, it's not bad. You got to kind of figure out what that bullpen's going to look like moving forward.
The famous reliever.
I don't mind the Giants. I think the Giants they're just a funky looking team now. Their current win-loss totals at 81.5, and I could see them
I know
getting to
like
81.5. I think they're going to be like an 82 and 80 team. That just feels very Giants to me. We're gonna look. It's very much the way those San Francisco Giants like to operate. They always feel like they have a very wacky, weird franchise, and they just figure a way to make it work.
I mean, pretty much this whole bullpen.
With that being said, we're going to move on to our next team, and that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had an unbelievable playoff run last year. I really wish they were able to go and win the World Series, but that just did not happen.
Decent season for Colorado last year.
Lefty out of the pen.
They definitely needed that to pair up with Sam Moll.
Of course, they still have guys like Emilio Marte, guys who been a solid reliever. Gonna be the
so that's another great guy to pick up.
But
I really do think this team has become who's been unbelievable. What they were setting rookie steal records. I've never seen a guy get 54 steals in his rookie year. They're moving in the right direction. And hit 25 home runs, bat 285. I mean, he was phenomenal.
Votto is probably going to walk away.
That was a
from the
great
sport of baseball
signing.
I don't know if he wants
at the same time, great
great
kind of looking more and more like what it's going to be now.
They didn't do a ton this season in terms of bats.
This team looks
the moves they made, I really
extremely young. They got the real youth movement going on in this team. Really,
Lourdes
the one
Gurriel
word that I had to describe this team with was just possibilities.
Oh, my bad.
This team is full
they
of
already had him.
Full of hope.
They
and
re-signed him, so I don't think that was a bad pickup at all. That was a nice re-sign. Get a quality outfielder in there. That always helps to shore up the corners.
Now, unfortunately,
they also went out and picked up Eugenio Suarez, a guy who's been able to play the hot corner and shortstop.
I want to see them win more than
power and play with some consistency. I know he has a firearm over there, so he'll be able to rifle that ball over to Christian Walker for effective outs in the field. I think that was a great pickup for them, and they also went out and picked up another lefty bat in Jock Peterson. They needed another lefty bat in this lineup, a real top lefty bat.
It's going to be
and Jock Peterson's going to be an awesome guy to help protect Christian Walker and Eugenio Suarez. So I think that's going to just add a lot to this team. Now,
weaker than
some of the younger guys we get to see just step up and play is going to be Alec Thomas and Gabriel Moreno. Those two guys, they haven't hit their Corbin Carroll stride yet, but
don't be
I think we're going to see Gabriel Moreno really come into his own this season.
Throw something down in the comments
really just be able to
talk about.
Get a true full season's worth of catching in.
You guys know. And if you made it here, I really appreciate
the next
you
big
making
thing.
It
So I'm excited to see how that pans out for them. I really do like that lineup. I think it's just a lot of quality there, something we don't get from every team. Yeah,
have a good one.
Now, what I will say is the one thing that I describe this team as is just being one starting pitcher away. Now, the reason why I say that is because, I love Zach Gallen. I think Zach Gallen was a phenomenal trade, that when they went out, traded Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen. I think they've won that trade as to this point. They also have Merrill Kelly, a guy who's had a lot of success with this team, has played in the World of Baseball Classic for the
and
for Team USA, so I love that. They also went out and picked up Erod.
Another episode
Erod's been a quality arm for a long time, so that was an awesome pickup. I like those three guys. You have a nice little setup for your first three starters. Now on the back end, you have Brandon Fad.
My name is Zach.
Who I personally don't mind. I know you want to see him develop a little bit more at the age of 25, but I don't know how much more time with this type of roster you want to let this guy sit and develop. And same thing with Ryan Nelson. I think you might run into a similar issue there. But going out there signing a guy like
this episode is going to be the last episode.
Oh, there was one dude from Milwaukee I really loved this year, and I can't remember his name.
And with that being said, let's just
maybe they pick up a guy like
that.
There's
no reason to wait
I don't know.
longer.
I think this team really is just one more quality, one more halfway decent starting pitcher away from
right into it.
Really making me feel so confident in their ability to get back into the playoffs and really make a World Series run. Now, with that being said, they didn't really do much to the bullpen. Another team that kind of was very okay with what they had. I'll say. They didn't need to add anything. I don't necessarily love Joe Mantiply being your number one lefty with Andrew Southbank.
Cardinals,
but
we saw Kenta Maeda.
We'll see how that goes. Now they do have some decent arms in there. Between
Emilio Pagan left, Joey Gallo,
Kevin Ginkel, Miguel Castro, who's
even Miguel Sano,
up and down, and we also see Paul Sewald, the former Met, in there,
kind of just filling out the roster.
Paul Sewald had a ton of success last year. Guy's been pretty good in his Arizona Diamondback career, so I expect him to have success. But I think this pitching might just need a little bit more. But I really do love the additions that Arizona made this offseason. I think they've done a great job in just really effectively building up an already great team.
Really, the only major addition here is going to be Carlos Santana coming over from
they're
Milwaukee.
At a surprising 83.5 win.
Has been a quality bat.
And I'll be honest with you,
for many of his years in the league.
Smashing the win total. I think they're going to win more than 83.5 games. I could see this being a 92, 93 win team. And that's really where I'm going to place them as a 92, 93 win team. I think they might be the number one wild card team in their in the NL. And I really do like the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think they're one of the most solid teams in the league.
I would argue that
now. With that being said, we're going to have to talk about a very sad and disappointing organization. A team that I just haven't seen have much success in a long time now. They did have a little bit of success with a guy getting into the Hall of Fame by the name of Todd Helton.
Former number one overall
pick. The Colorado Rockies are just kind of sputtering. They don't feel like they're getting anywhere. He's someone I'm very excited to see getting any better. So we're going to quickly run through this team.
At that third base position.
I'll be honest with you, I think it's funny that Charlie Blackmon. I mean, he's not going to go anywhere. He's a Rocky for life.
Really do like that side. side of the ball.
When you have him
now,
being your kind of your captain
they do
of
have
this
a lot
team,
of guys
I'm
that they're
not all
bringing
too
up
confident in it.
who works,
I know Nolan Jones is a rather young guy they want to see
Jeffers,
explode onto the
Kirilov,
scene. He actually had a
Matt
pretty
Wallner,
decent season last
Eddie
year, so I know they're
Julian.
hoping for more out of him.
Some of these guys, they've been a part. They've
Chris
been with
Bryant
Minnesota
has just
for a
been
long,
atrocious
long time,
since he signed
really
that big money deal, and I like Ryan McMahon.
What they got, what they have in these guys. So
Ryan McMahon.
I think that's
I like him.
He
plays a solid third, second base. Lefty power hitter. They definitely need that because they just don't have a ton. They do have a little bit of pop, but it's not hard to have pop up in Colorado. Mile High Stadium, you hit those balls, they just fly.
Last year.
I'm just not a fan of really what they have going.
All they did offensively.
It's a rough lineup. Maybe we see them trade
much, but
catcher.
They definitely
Elas Diaz. I know he was a
much either.
What's called an all-star last year, so I could see them potentially moving on from him.
This is a team,
but I just don't think this roster gives you anything. I don't like Brandon Rodgers. I don't think he's super duper great,
and would definitely greatly help.
I love Jacob Stallings as a backup catcher, which he is. He's probably awesome defender,
here, but
hasn't really been able to get consistent offense. But really, the thing we need to talk about is just the lack of pitching.
Another guy.
I know it's hard to pitch up in,
especially from the DH
spot in
Colorado, but expect him to hit about 30 home runs. I think it just adds a lot more depth to this team in general.
Kyle Freeland is not great.
With that being said, we're going to move over to the pitching side of things.
Played a little bit. He's young. He might have some success. I don't know. He's
they did do
Austin Gomber's nothing crazy. Dakota
Kenta Maeda,
Hudson's nothing
crazy.
Molly.
The
only good real starting pitcher they have, I would argue, is
to kind of replace that role. Now he's more
Herman Marquez.
Didn't have a great
even
season
him
last year. Don't know exactly
it's
what
a little
to
rough right
him,
now.
but it's
so unless they're going to be able to get him back from Tommy John this season,
a guy that I believe
the starting rotation really has no
Tommy John surgery from a couple years ago. Only had
it's going to be a little rough.
5 innings
bullpen
pitched
is
last season. I expect
seemingly
to see
just
him
as
with a
bleak.
full season.
So
see what they can get out of
rather
Chris
than
Paddock,
waste time here and act like I'm going to enjoy
still
talking
rather
about
young
this
at
team.
28 years old.
I don't like this team. I don't think it's good. I don't think
Paddock has left in
really. They didn't win or lose free agency.
Pablo Lopez,
lose or gain pretty much anything. So with that being said,
Joe Ryan, a guy who had some success last year,
about the Rockies.
We're definitely expecting him to bring that ERA down.
I had him at 60.5 wins for the over/under. I said
0.5.
Why bother?
Just because sitting at
this line is stupid.
4.51 is
no reason to even bother. This might be one of the worst
I
teams
hope that we see Joe Ryan's ERA
so with
drop
that
a little
being
bit.
Said,
and then Bailey Ober, a guy
that's
was
the
coming
NL
through the
West.
Minnesota system.
West is a fun division. I think we're really going to see the Dodgers and Diamondbacks pop out like crazy. Maybe we see a surprise Giants team.
Bailey Ober,
I don't know how that's going to float.
Phenomenal season last year.
We'll see how it goes as the season progresses.
To the tune of a 3.43 ERA.
Now, with that being said.
Look, when you're able
to
do that,
appreciate you guys coming out, listening, enjoying the show with me. It means a lot. Now go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it.
Hopefully
leave a comment.
This team definitely went for the youth movement in terms of starting pitching. Letting go.
Now that if you made it this long in the video, I appreciate your
just to kind of have those spots
be
filled in by guys like Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan. Kind of get that next step for the youth movement in terms of pitchers. Now their bullpen. They did do a little bit of work here. They picked up 4 guys. They picked up Justin Topa, Steven Okert, Josh Stoutmont, and Jay Jackson. Now, out of all these guys, I would say Jay Jackson had a good season last year. 29 innings to the tune of a 2.12. We also saw Justin Topa have a good season last year with Seattle. 69 innings pitched to a tune of a 2.61. That was awesome. If you look at this bullpen, they had a lot of stellar arms. We saw that Brock Stewart was unbelievably phenomenal last year through his limited action in 27 innings. We saw Johan Duran really step up and show that he's going to be an elite closer in this league, especially with elite speed. That's something that's pretty cool to see. I expect him to get better and better as the season goes on and as his career goes on. But yeah, I actually really do like this bullpen. I think it's been a well-crafted bullpen, and it's just, it's nice. I like where they're heading. I think they made a bunch of good moves there. Now, in terms of the rest of the team, it just feels like this lineup it's not bad, but it just feels like it doesn't have enough. There's no true shining star on this lineup. Something that it feels like they really do need in terms of a bat. They just need one guy that is going to go out there and hit the fucking hell out of the ball. Now, with that being said, I would definitely say maybe they did a decent job in free agency. And obviously, they clearly wanted to get younger at a lot of their starting pitching position. Now, I really wish they would have went out there and picked up one more high-quality bat. I think that really would have helped this lineup. Now, picking up Carlos Santana by all means is not a bad play, but it does feel like they're one more player away. Now, with that being said, this team is currently at 86.5 wins on the over-under. And in all honesty,
I'm going to give them the under. I think this is a team that, they might end up going out there and winning somewhere in the mid-80s, but I don't think they end up getting up to the high 80s. I just don't see it. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next team here, but right after a short break, I'll be right back to discuss the next AL Central team. And we're back, baby. Now we're talking about the Detroit Tigers. Now, Detroit Tigers had an interesting offseason. We did see them, we'll talk about the free agency period first. We saw them lose Spencer Turnbull, a guy that really wasn't super high priority, and they had also lost Eduardo Rodriguez to the Cardinals on a 4-year, $80 million deal. Now, losing Erod definitely is going to be felt. Erod had a great career, pretty good pitcher down there in Detroit for the couple years he was down there. Now, with that being said, outside of that, doesn't seem like they've lost all too much. Now, they've also lost Matthew Boyd, a starting pitcher they've had in the rotation for a long time now, come up through the system. But we'll start talking about kind of what they have done this free agency. So let's start with the bats. In terms of what they lost, they didn't really lose anything from their starting lineup. Rather, they gained. They pick up Gio Urshela, quality, kind of util middle corner infielder. So that's awesome. You also picked up Mark Canha, a guy who had a pretty good season last year from the left field spot. Now, with these two additions, I think that just helps the lineup a little bit. Gio's a solid bat, solid defensive player. He's just a good all-around player. Now, last year, he only had 2 home runs through 228 plate appearances. Now, just because I'm curious, I'm going to punch up Gio Urshela's numbers. Urshela. Ella, under my Gio Urshela. Ella, All right. So, Gio is he's had a decent career. He's going to be going on his age 32 season. Now, last year, he didn't do all too much. 2 home runs, 24 RBIs through 228 plate appearances, played 62 games last year. Now, in a full season slate, I expect him to hit about, like 10-ish home runs, maybe hitting about 50 ribbies. Get on the base paths a lot. He's been consistently a decent hitter, hitting around, I want to say that 277 average mark for his career. So that's something that's pretty awesome. You're expecting him to get on the base paths, get the, just get the innings moving. This could be a guy that, depending on where they put him in their lineup, I could really see him being a high run scorer for this team. Now, it just depends on where he's going to be in the lineup. But I do like Gio as an ad for this team. I think that was really high quality. They went out, they picked up Mark Canha, formerly of the Mets and then of Milwaukee. I don't think this Mark Canha deal was a bad deal. Obviously, guy's been in the league for a little bit. He does have some quality at bats to him. He's not the greatest player by any stretch, but he's definitely going to be able to get on base. And this team is just trying to get players that are going to get on base. I think that's definitely the one thing they kind of lacked last year. They had the pop from guys like Javi Baez and guys like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, but I think adding guys like Canha and Gio really add into that, that just getting on base effect. You get so many more runs, so many more opportunities, so many more points just by getting guys on base. So I think that's really going to help this team. Now, in terms of what they did to the bench, nothing. Their bench looks fine. But really the thing I wanted to kind of move to next is going to be their starting rotation. Now, they did lose one starting rotation piece in Erod, but, they did go out and picked up Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda to kind of shore up this starting rotation, something I really enjoyed that they did, along with Tyreek Skubal. Skubal has been a player that they've had on this team for a little bit, come up through the system, has had a lot of success. So I expect to see him, kind of with a full slate of games this year, to be just as dominant for this team, being their true ace. Now, with that being said, I like the Jack Flaherty pickup. He's coming off a down year, but still, at the worst, if he's going to be a decently quality innings eater pitcher, I think that's still huge for them. Kenta Maeda coming off kind of a year last year too, but this is a guy who's had a lot of career success, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him kind of get back to that career success this man has had. Now, two of the other guys they have in this rotation, Matt Manning and Reese Olson, they're obviously two younger prospects that have been coming up through the system for a little bit. Reese Olson came over from Milwaukee 2 years ago, whereas Matt Manning was kind of been in the system since 2016.
So I'm intrigued to see how these two players kind of, if they're going to flourish or kind of flounder underneath their newfound roles in this lineup, really seeing, who has the ability to play in the MLB. I think Matt Manning more so than Reese Olson. This might be one of his kind of final chances, going into year 3 of MLB service time. I'm very intrigued to see what Matt Manning can do for this team, especially because of the amount of time he's already had in the league. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the bullpen. Not much changed here. They kind of had an all right bullpen last year, but they did go out and picked up Andrew Chafin and Shelby Miller. Now, I do think these two pitchers, both age 33, one's a lefty, one's a righty. I think this adds a little bit more balance to this bullpen in terms of having another quality lefty. But, last year this team had a lot of success from the bullpen, whether it was Alex Lange, who had a 3.68 with 26 saves, or Jason Foley, who had a great year last year. He had a 2.61 through 69 innings. Will Vest had a good year last year. Shelby Miller had a good year last year. Tyler Holton had a good year last year. So, with that just being in mind, I think that their bullpen looks pretty solid. I would not be afraid to let this bullpen come out into this game a little early around the 6th, the 5th, 6th inning if it needs to. So with that being said, I actually really do like the Detroit Tigers roster. I think they've definitely improved on, just this team in general, all facets of this team. I'm really, really kind of excited to see what they have. And now they also have some young guys coming up through the system too. I just wanted to talk about this one more time. Guys like Parker Meadows and Colt Keith, guys who haven't had a lot of time at that MLB level. And just to throw in a couple more names like Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, and Riley Green, a lot of these guys haven't had a lot of time in the league. So they're really trying to figure out if these batters that have been coming up through the system are worthwhile, if they're, going to be able to bang for this team. And it's something I think they'll definitely find out who's going to be worthwhile for them. Spencer Torkelson obviously had a great year last year. I expect him to do more of the same. But really, I'm expecting either one of Colt Keith and Parker Meadows to kind of pop out onto the scene a little bit. So I'm excited to see what that's gonna, when that happens and how that kind of shakes out. So with that being said, the Tigers are currently at 80.5 games. I'm actually gonna take the over on the Tigers at 80.5. I think they've improved across the board, and they don't necessarily need to be a winning team. A 500 team is good enough to make that a solid dub, but I'm taking the Tigers. I really feel like they've improved this season, and it feels like they have a lot of fun youth on this team ready to kind of take the front stage of the MLB. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our next team, and that's going to be the Cleveland Guardians. All right, so now we're talking about the Cleveland Guardians. Now the Guardians, let's see. I don't know if they had an interesting offseason. All right. It was very, we'll call it very mid. Nothing really happened. I mean, they lost Zach Plesac, who had some success for this team. Ronaldo Lopez, a quality reliever, got 3-year, I believe $30 million from the Atlanta Braves. And then we also saw Giolito leave. Now, Giolito, I believe, was kind of like I feel like he was a piece that was always going to leave. I actually didn't realize he was on the Guardians for some reason. I don't know why. I thought Lucas Giolito was on the Angels last season. But Giolito. But regardless, I don't think this Guardians team is that great. They're pretty all right. I mean, like a lot of other teams in the league, they're trying to see if a lot of these young guys have any real pop to them. Now, this team didn't go out there and sign any big free agents, so I'm just going to say they lost free agency. Just losing Ronaldo Lopez in and of itself is good enough. Oh, so he did get traded to Cleveland. Okay. I didn't realize that. Oh, he was bad on fucking Cleveland. Holy shit. All right, well, I didn't realize that he played like 4 games for Cleveland, but Giolito did play like 4 games for Cleveland. Regardless of that being said, losing him, it doesn't feel like that big of a loss. But as we look at this team, they have some quality players. I like Steven Kwan. I like Jimenez. Obviously, Han Ram is still one of the best. He's probably the best third baseman in the entire league. Josh Naylor, young guy they've had coming up through the system. They want to see how much pop he's got. He had a pretty decent season last year to the tune of 300 batting average, 17 homers, 10 steals. He's not a bad player by any means. They also have Bo Naylor. I'm gonna assume that's his brother. Coming up through the Cleveland system. He's a catcher. he's also been halfway decent. He's only had a little bit of service time in the league, so I expect him to really take over that catching role this year. So that's going to be very exciting. They also have some other young guys like Kyle Manzardo. Never heard of you. I don't know if you're good or not, but he currently is the number 1 ranked prospect in the organization as per 2023. And then we're also going to see Brian Rocchio, another guy with very minimal service time. He's going to come up, see what he has to offer from that shortstop position. He's currently ranked the number 2 overall prospect as per last year in this team's system. So they're bringing up their best prospects, seeing what they got. I actually like picking up Ramon Laureano. I think he's a pretty decent outfielder. Has had some issues the last couple of years, but I think he's someone that I'm excited to watch play for this team. They really didn't do all too much, in this lineup. They really just kind of picked up more and kept bringing up more Cleveland guys through the system, just trying to see what their prospects have. Now, in terms of the bench, they did do a couple things. They signed Austin Hedges to back up what I assume is going to be Bo Naylor's starting gig. We also saw Estevan Florial, former Yankees outfielder, get moved here. Now, their bench isn't anything to write home about. It's just a bench. Now, as we keep moving, this team, you can very much tell that free agency, this team was clearly unaffected. They barely did anything. They still have Shane Bieber in their, as their ace in their rotation. Tristan McKenzie, a guy they're hoping can start to flourish into the pitcher they believe he can be. Tanner Beebe, a guy who's had 1 year of service time. He was really good last year, so hopefully he can repeat the same thing. He had a sub-3 ERA through 25 games, so that was pretty awesome. Logan Allen, another guy with very minimal service time. He played 24 games last year. I hope he's going to be halfway decent. I'm excited to see what he's got to offer. And then same thing with Gavin Williams. Just some more young. This team has a lot of young pitching prospects. They're trying to see kind of who has what, and a lot of these guys were picked up. 3 of these guys specifically, Beebe, Allen, and Williams, they were all acquired in 2020 and 2021. So getting these young guys into the starting rotation, seeing if they have the juice, I think that's really beneficial for this Cleveland team, especially with guys like Tanner Beebe, who's already kind of proven they got the juice. Now, with that being said, we'll move on to their bullpen. Their bullpen's pretty, the same. I mean, they went out, picked up Scott Barlow, former closer of, I believe the Kansas City Royals had moved on to the Padres last year. I don't think that's a bad pickup. Definitely not anything to write home about, like, oh, we got Scott Barlow. He's fucking awesome. I mean, he's all right. He's definitely going to add some good innings to this bullpen. I think that's definitely something they needed. They also picked up Ben Lively. Can't say I know much about you, but through your 88 innings pitched last year to a tune of a 5.38. I wouldn't say that was all too great, but you are a long relief pitcher, so I don't know. We'll see where that kind of goes from here. Now, with that being said, this bullpen is mid. There's not a lot else there. I mean, Clase is obviously he's in a class of his own. Phenomenal closer. But outside of that, this team just feels very mid. It doesn't feel like they really had any intentions of getting better. Now, they're at 78.5 wins for this season, but I'm going to hit the under. I just don't think this team has the juice, has the pop to do what they want to do. And they won 76 games last year. I think they got worse, so I don't really see how they hit the 78 win mark. I don't think it's in the cards for them. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the next team, and that's going to be the Kansas City Royals. As soon as it slowly pulls up, there we go. Now, the Kansas City Royals had a bad season last year. They were 56 and 106, just absolutely rough. And they really didn't do a lot in free agency either. Now, they're going to lose Zach Greinke, probably to retirement. So, hey, it happens. Nothing you can do. They really didn't lose any other major pieces in free agency. I didn't realize Hunter Dozier was still in the league. That is crazy. But they didn't lose a ton that I would be all too bothered to lose. In terms of their lineup, they went out, picked up Hunter Renfroe, a nice little ad. Needed some guy with a little bit more pop in the lineup, especially from that outfield spot. So I think he adds a nice little value signing there. Ooh, excuse me. So I like that pickup. I think that was a solid pickup. They also pick up, former second baseman / outfielder Adam Frazier to come off the bench, a guy who I think is going to get a lot of time in this lineup if they're looking to win a lot of games. A guy I like, pretty decent MLB career up to this point. But yeah, I mean, the more I look at this lineup, the more I realize, it's another team with a youth movement. Outside of Salvi and Hunter Renfroe, I mean, they don't have a guy that's over the age of 27 on this lineup. So really, like I said, they're really trying to see who's got what, who's, which young guys are going to be the young guys of the future for this team. And obviously Bobby Witt, who signed a long-term deal, is going to be at the head of that conversation. But we also see guys like MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino, some of the other young guys who've gotten an opportunity to play a little bit and really have shown us that they have some quality to them. It's just going to be intriguing to see, where they go from here. I want to see these guys improve. I'm really excited to see them improve, and I think they have a lot on the table. Now, other guys that can be included in this list are Michael Massey, Nelson Velasquez, and Mikel Garcia are all other guys that, rather young. They're going to give them an opportunity to play and really see what they have to offer the team. Now, I will say I actually do kind of like this lineup. I don't know why, but just looking at it, I kind of fuck with it. I like where they're heading for some reason. Now, with that being said, they do have two starting pitchers currently hurt. That's Chris Bubic and Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright came over from Atlanta via a trade in November of 2023, so I'm going to be intrigued to see how he gets back. He's coming off of shoulder surgery from October 11th of 2023, so that'll be interesting to see if he can get back. Now, with that being said, Chris Bubic's kind of been on that Tommy John, he got Tommy John surgery almost a full year ago, so that'll be interesting as well. Now, this team did a good chunk of stuff, in terms of their starting rotation. I've never heard of Cole Reagans, but I feel like I did hear about something, Cole Reagans being talked about over the Chris Rose rotation. Do believe that they mentioned Cole Reagans as being a up-and-coming lefty pitcher, for this team. Someone's got a lot of excitement, a lot of juice for them, and based on what I can tell, from his previous year's stats, I mean, for a guy who's 26 but 1 year of service time, if he's able to replicate what he did last year, 12 games pitched to a 3.47 ERA, I think he can expand upon the games played and really just show that he's a quite good starting pitcher in this league. And I think Cole Reagans is going to have an awesome opportunity this year. He's going to have all year long to do it, so that's going to be very exciting. Really the only main pitching prospect in this rotation, so that's going to be exciting. They also went out, picked up Michael Wacha. Guys had some career success. Same thing with Seth Lugo. Guys had some career success. Seth Lugo had a lot of success last year, moving over to the starting pitching rotation, after being a reliever for I can't tell you how many years in the Mets. But Seth Lugo had a decent year last year, and I'm always excited for Seth Lugo. So I'm going to hope Seth Lugo has a good year too. Brady Singer, guy who's come up through the Kansas City Royals organization, has had a little bit of success, but looks more and more like an innings eater. A guy I root for because I know he did, upon getting signed with the Royals, I know he bought out his parents' house. So it's a guy that's got a lot of, cool juices going with him. I like Brady Singer. He seems like a cool dude. I hope that he, can turn that ERA around. Had a 5.5 ERA through 29 games pitched last year. I hope this 27-year-old can turn that around and really show that he's a viable starting pitcher. Now, with that being said, we're gonna quickly go through this bullpen. Bullpen-wise, they did pick up a couple names. They went out there. They picked up Will Smith, formerly of the of the Rangers, and I believe the Houston Astros. So that's a nice little signing there. A guy had 22 saves last year. Definitely not the best year of his career last year, but a guy that can definitely add some value to a pen, especially from the lefty spot. They went out, they picked up Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson, John Schreiber, and I like those three names by themselves are awesome pickups. I mean, in all honesty, this team feels like a team that has two closers on it right now between Nick Anderson and Will Smith, and I really like that. And that's not even talking about James McArthur, the guy who they had, they had him last year. He did a little bit of closing, currently put into that closer role. Now, obviously, the closer role is going to change. It's gonna have to go through some trials and tribulations to figure out who's going to be the main starter, main closer. But the things they did to their bullpen, I think, added a ton of value and really made this bullpen a viable bullpen. With some of the guys they add, I really think that John Schreiber, Nick Anderson, and Chris Stratton pickups really are gonna help this bullpen explode with success. And that's not even including the Will Smith pickup, which I think was a phenomenal signing. I really do like the direction their bullpen went. I think that's going to be rather beneficial for this team. Now, their over-under is currently set at 73.5 games won. Now, 73.5, I'm actually going to take the over. For some reason, I feel like this team's got some good juice to it. They feel like they greatly improved across the board, something that I love to see teams getting better. And I think that there's a lot to be said of a team, going out there in free agency, trying to get better for the players. And it helps the players just be that much more excited for these boys, you got to rally the troops every game for 162 games. When you go out there in free agency and you pick up some guys and say, hey, we're here to play baseball, baby.
I think it definitely really helps the organization mindset as a whole, and I think the Kansas City Royals did a great job this offseason of, really pushing that mindset. So I'm going over to 73.5 games won. Now, we'll get to our last team here. Last team of the divisional preview, and that's going to be the White Sox. The White Sox, I feel like, are a team we can go through. We'll see how quickly we get through them, but it'll be interesting. Now, with that being said, off-season wise, they did lose a couple pieces. They lost Grandal. They lost Liam Hendriks. I believe Mike Clevenger is not going to be coming back. Tim Anderson was lost after coming off of the worst season of his career. But, Grandal was okay at this point. I don't think he was necessarily anything to write home about. Liam Hendriks coming off of cancer and I believe a Tommy John. So I don't mind them stepping away from that. And Tim Anderson coming off the worst season of his career. I don't think that's a bad player to step off of either. Now, with that being said, I'm going to blow my nose because I'm a little stuffed up. Give me 1 sec, folks. Oh, never mind, because we're still recording. My software won't stop. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly finish this up then. So, I do like the front five of this lineup is pretty solid. I like Andrew Vaughn, young guy, shows that he's got a lot of pop. Benintendi's been around for a little bit. He's a quality outfielder, definitely a Gold Glove caliber player. Luis Robert is the superstar of this team, playing center fielder. He's a phenomenal player. There's nothing else to even be said about him. Young Moncada, a guy that personally I've had a little bit more hope for, hasn't shown that he's been the player I thought he could be. Now, maybe if he can turn those numbers around a little bit, I'd like to see him in the area of 15 home runs, batting about, 270. I think that would be perfect for Yoan Moncada. I would like to see that step up from the last year to those stats. As last year, he, had 11 home runs with a 260 average. Now, a guy that I really like, but has just had a lot of issues of staying in the field, is Eloy Jimenez. If Eloy can stay healthy for a whole season, I expect this guy to hit at least 30 home runs, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 RBIs. He's a phenomenal bat, but really the issue with this 27-year-old is that he has no ability to stay healthy. That's been his biggest knock on him for his entire career, is that if Eloy could stay healthy, Eloy would be a phenomenal player. Now, with that being said, we're going to keep kind of moving on along. We see new right field prospect for this team coming up. They did acquire him from Arizona recently, Dominic Fletcher. Going to let him get some time in the outfield this season, see how he can play. That's going to be interesting. The back end of this lineup is all filled in by free agents, which I actually don't mind. I think, going out there and showing your team you're trying to do something, trying to make this team viable. I do like that. Now, with that being said, two of the other adds, middle infielders, you're going to have Paul DeYoung playing shortstop from the San Francisco Giants, formerly of the Cardinals. He's not terrible, but he's definitely not great. Nicky Lopez, same thing, coming over from Atlanta. He's going to play second base for this team. I don't think he's anything to write home about. And then you have Martin Maldonado, a guy who's not phenomenal behind the plate, or, batting at the plate, but he is phenomenal behind the plate. Now, with that being said, we're just going to keep on moving on because my nose is getting more stuffed by the minute. So, in terms of injuries, I don't know Davis Martin or Jesse Schlotens. They both had Tommy John. I don't know if either of those guys are good. They seem to be a little bit older, on the older side of prospects. And then relief, Shane Doran and Matt Foster are hurt. I don't know those guys. We're going to pass through them. So, in terms of the starting rotation, the rotation isn't great, but it's not bad. I do like that they picked up Mike Soroka from the Atlanta Braves. I know he had some injury history last year, only got 6 starts in, but a guy I believe has had some decent career success. I've watched him play enough against my Mets to know that, I'll be honest with you, I would love to have Mike Soroka as one of my starting pitchers on the New York Mets. Now, with that being said, they do have some other decent pitching guys there. We saw Dylan Cease come off of a down year, through 33 starts, had a 4.5 ERA. I do expect him to kind of get back on track. I know he has high walk rate numbers, but I expect him to kind of get back into the, Dylan Cease of old. I like Soroka. Michael Kopech's a guy they've had in the system for a long time. Has had a lot of injury problems, but has shown he's got some special stuff. But the issue is, you can show all the special stuff you want, but if you can't pitch, it's detrimental to your team. Now, Mike Soroka, he didn't play in 2022. He didn't play in 2023. I'm sorry, in 2021, but he did play, a couple games in 2023. So I'm excited to see Soroka hopefully get back onto that 2019, 2020, 2018 track.
Now, with that being said, Eric Freddie coming back from the KBO. I don't know what he looks like. Hopefully he's halfway decent. And then Chris Flexen, a guy who's been in the league for a long time. He was formerly of the Mets, and then I believe of Seattle for a little bit, then of Colorado. I don't think he's going to be anything to write home about. Chris Flexen was definitely not great on the Mets, definitely not great on Colorado, and he's definitely not going to be great now, so that's a little rough. But outside of that, I do think Kopech, maybe we could finally see if Kopech has anything or if it's time to move off of him. I like Dylan Cease. I like Soroka. I think this starting rotation has definitely improved upon itself a little bit. Now, we'll move into the bullpen. Their bullpen is still pretty bad, but John Brabia, coming over from San Francisco, I think adding a guy like him to your rotate or your bullpen is definitely going to help you. Gives you guys a true solid closer. So that's awesome. You guys also picked up Jesse Chavez. I don't know him, but clearly had a great year last year with Atlanta. Had a 1.56 through 34 innings. Awesome. They also picked up Tim Hill. Don't know much about you, but I don't like their bullpen. Their bullpen's kind of shit. Hopefully we could see Garrett Crochet potentially re-enter the starting rotation. A guy that I know they've had kind of just on the wings for a little bit. They want to see how good Garrett Crochet is at that starting rotation spot. So I have a feeling that later in the season we'll see Flexen get flexed to the rotation as that long innings reliever, and we'll see Garrett Crochet get moved into that fifth starting spot. Now, with that being said, their over-unders at 63.5. We saw them win 61 games last year. And to be honest with you, I think they're going to be a little bit better. I think they're going to go over that 63.5 games. So it's really, to me, it's dependent upon Eloy's health. I think if Eloy is able to stay healthy, this team's able to win 63 games. If not, I think they might have some trouble again. Now, with that being said, that's all the teams we have in these divisional previews. That's it. That's everything. That's everybody, every team, and I really appreciate you guys for coming out, listening, and enjoying the show with me. It means a lot, I greatly appreciate you guys. If you made it this far, I'd really appreciate you guys. If you could like, subscribe, maybe throw a comment down there. I do try to reply to all the comments. So, with that being said, I really appreciate you guys coming out, listening, and spending your time with me on whatever random day you're doing it with. And with that being said, folks, have a phenomenal day.